is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Jawar Jordan hits the hole off right tackle. Jordan, here he goes! This place is gonna rock!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Missouri still trying to get set from the end zone. Cook throws wide. It's intercepted! House call for Major Burns! And LSU is going to escape Columbia with a win.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's King from the pocket. Flush to his right with 6. 5. Going to loop it downfield. And ball is caught. Touchdown, Georgia Tech. With 1 second to go in the ball game, Christian Leary hauls it in.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
They pitch it left. Williams goes down. And USC wins the game in triple overtime.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Trey Benson off to the races. One guy to beat. High stepping. He got Smoak for the Hokies. Touchdown. 85 yards.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. There's a Big 12 game tonight, and we will hear from their sideline reporter, Jed Drenning. Paul spoke with him about a half an hour ago to focus in on the game against the University of Houston. There's some interesting news involving the Pac-12, and we'll get to that as well. Also, we'll show you at some point here in this opening segment the top 10 teams and who has the toughest schedule the remaining rest of the year. And obviously the Pac-12 have a lot of teams that have to gobble each other up at one way or the other. So here we are, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. Thank you for your time every single day as we try to bring you whatever's happening in college sports, plus so much more. Let's get to the story involving the Pac-12. Earlier today, or in a report today from John Wilner from the San Jose Mercury News and what is the Pac-12 hotline for now, that George Kliavkoff has said that USC and UCLA had been removed from the Pac-12 board. This was in a statement, a sworn statement in the Comcast case, which we'll get to, a potentially significant development for the Washington State, Oregon State lawsuit. Why?
Well, I mean, if they don't have any rights anymore, then that kind of works in the favor of Washington State and Oregon State. Although I wonder, how it, again, that's the first two teams. Well, what about the other 8 that left? Those are things. And the other thing that's also come out is that they are not $50 million in the hole to Comcast. They're $72 million in the hole to Comcast. The overpayments were far more than they said, because all he said before was it was over $50 million. Well, 72 is way over 50.
72 is almost another 25% or more, maybe 50% above what they thought. Yeah.
So distributions withheld by Comcast to offset 10 years of overpayments based on the company's flawed tracking of Pac-12 network subscribers was $58 million, and then reductions in distributions for this year to account for a correction in the subscriber figures is $14 million, and the source said it typifies 12 years of neglect.
Yeah, wow. Yikes. That's not a good look for George Kliavkoff. And I know that we've held off on getting Bob Thompson, or that he's, said, let's just wait till there's something a bit more concrete and substantial, which I agree. I think that that's better served. But, I saw him reacting to a couple of those tweets. And there's obviously a lot of interest with those two fan bases, and just, in general with what all that means for, a lot of different potential programs and teams and conferences, whatever gets resolved out there. But, it's just kind of a tale of two parts of the day, I guess, because a few hours ago, when the news came out that, it was acknowledged, Wilner was one of those two that had this out there that, they had, basically treated USC and UCLA like they weren't a part of the deal anymore. That would, leads you to think that, okay, well, that plays into Oregon State and Washington State's hands as far as, these other schools and how they're leaving, although it's different circumstances. And so I'm not a legal expert. I won't pretend to be ever on here. I know we got people much smarter that can explain it better, but they're arguing that set a precedent so that when these other schools did it, that meant, okay, well, that automatically means that you withdrew that way. So the argument's over whether or not that was actually precedent or not, and that's what they're going to wade through. But it did seem like it was a good, a good thing for those two remaining schools that was acknowledged, that they did not treat those two on their way out as though they were voting board members any longer. But as soon as you celebrated that, then this news comes out that all this money that you thought was there, there's even less of it than you thought. There's a lot less of it than you thought, to the point where, I saw it described by Wilner or somebody else of like how it was, basically depleted, the $70-something million because of these accounting errors. So, yeah, on the one hand, you'd think that'd be great news for those schools and their argument. Not that it is going to, absolutely be taken that way by a judge or whatever, but you would think that does lead into their argument. But on the other hand, all that money that you think that's leading to is not quite what you thought now, because of the revelation that they actually did far worse than we thought with handling their finances and the Pac-12 network and all those things. So you wonder too, like in their negotiations with networks, how much of that, the Pac-12 subscriber numbers and things like that were talked about, and was that revealed? Was that uncovered? And did that lead to some of the hesitancy to drive up prices and to get that deal done by some of those networks, because they realized, like, this thing's a house of cards. This isn't what it's been made out to be. Because remember, well, they've got 100,000 this, and if everybody just pays this on Apple, then that'll lead to this. And, well, the numbers were never even correct to begin with. So, just kind of bizarre how it got this far down the road. But, yeah, not a good look for George Kliavkoff in particular.
Bob Thompson's reaction to John Wilner's story involving well beyond $50 million, all he said was, wow, just wow, about all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, it's no wonder, like, the more you find out about it, like, there's no wonder the conference fell apart.
No.
Just it's a credit that they made it as long as they did. Honestly, it's kind of amazing that they didn't fall apart before this.
It's almost like they had termites within the conference administration, and no one ever checked for whether or not there were termites. So if Washington, Oregon State end up with the only two votes, we know what they can do. They can try to, hey, this is all ours, and then they also then have to pay back $65 or $75 million, right?
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Well, no, it's already kind of gone.
Yeah, it's
already kind of gone.
There,
okay.
They don't have it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically the way that's kind of I've seen it taken, is that if you thought that there was $70 million there, whatever the figure is, there's not $70 million there.
Yeah.
There's not money there. So yeah, you're not paying off a bill. That bill's going to get paid off, and that's just not going to leave you nearly what you thought was left over.
Yeah, I'll also say this, like, for anyone who thought that Oregon State and Washington State were going to have this open and shut lawsuit on the Pac-12, that's just wrong. I mean, like, there's and they're probably finding a lot of this stuff out, like, as we are. Like, okay, well, we're going to sue for this, because I doubt a lot of this was common knowledge to the members of the league.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is if you were in TV negotiations all this time, Paul, for the last year, then you were operating with this thought that you had this amount of money and these amount of subscribers, and this was in your arsenal or your cachet, and it turns out, like, we're just now learning. They're just now learning that, like, all this is not exactly what it was propped up to be. So, yeah, it's no wonder this thing fell apart on itself.
Yeah, so if you didn't know the whole time, like, if you were relying on George Kliavkoff to just tell you, like, hey, everything's going well, then you look at, Comcast overpaid us, and now we have to give some of that money back. So now we know that our network wasn't as valuable as we were told it was. And, part of the reason you have university presidents going and saying, well, worth $50 million is, and while that seemed ridiculous, now I'm kind of buying, like, why you could be like, well, if we've got this and we've got this, and the commissioner is telling us that this is the first offer, well, then maybe we need to play a little hardball here. Now, it ultimately was a dumb decision, but now the conference presidents, and this is their fault too, we're not playing with complete information because they didn't ask.
Smartest people in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess smart people can get duped too, as we see in daily lives. But yeah, they got duped big time. And you know what? I take some of what I just said back. It's not Kleofkoff as much as Larry Scott still deserves the majority of the blame. So yeah, I don't want to. I guess I apologize semi to George Kleofkoff. You still deserve some of the blame, I think, in the grand scheme of things. But no, Larry Scott definitely deserves more of the blame. I should have said that from the beginning. But yeah, they were operating this entire with all that hubris too, like, you know, with all that confidence and all that. Who are you? And, you know, you don't like all that kind of stuff. And you were operating from a position that was not even what you thought it was to begin with. And that's just a tough pill to swallow for Pac-12 fans who, you know, for a long time are going to be talking about the demise of this conference and how it all unfolded. And I know there's probably going to be books written by one of the Johns at some point, and there's already been multiple articles and all that jazz. But, man, like, we're still learning new things about this now. Like today we learned, like, nope, that money's not really there. So the story is far from over as far as, you know, the entire picture of how it all came crashing down. But, you know, it's still semi-standing up right now, and that's what they're working through. And, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is this just it's not an open and shut deal. There's a lot to, you know, try and figure out and a lot to be decided here.
Also, speaking with someone within 365 Sports and SicEm365.com that's been following a lot of the ups and downs of the roller coaster of realignment, that Brett Yormark will be visiting Gonzaga, and perhaps as early as this weekend. That's just the next part of what we mentioned and what has been reported earlier this week about they are next up on the clock, and it will just a matter of not imminent, but he will be apparently visiting Gonzaga sometime this weekend. I don't know if that yet is something that has been released by the Big 12 or if it would even be released, but that's from those involved. Here is a graphic of the top 10 teams in the country. Now, I know both polls could be slightly different. The hardest schedules, the toughest upcoming schedules left, these are the top 10 teams, and look at the first three because they're all going to play each other, right? In some way. USC, Oregon, they play third Washington. These are not the top 10 ranked teams like an order of like, that's not USC. They're barely in the top 10, but they're in the top 10. Hardest remaining or toughest upcoming schedule, USC, Oregon, and Washington. Ohio State, Oklahoma, Michigan, Georgia, Penn State, Florida State, Texas at number 10.
Yeah, the top three all play each other, but then also, 4, 6, and 8 all play each other coming up.
Yep.
So that's going to be a nice little murderer's row. As a matter of fact, Ohio State and Penn State play next week. The game of the year of the week this week is Oregon and Washington. The game of the year of the week next week is Ohio State and Penn State.
What doesn't make sense here, you're right. Oklahoma has one ranked team left on their schedule as of now.
I don't get that where
Kansas,
they are.
and we don't know what they're going to be, and maybe even higher by the time they play in a couple of weeks.
Based on combined opponent win percentage.
Okay.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, UCF, they're going the wrong direction. That's who Oklahoma plays in a little over a week, and, I think that they'd be able to probably handle them pretty well. Dylan Gabriel versus his old team. Jeff Levy, I guess, against his old team as well. That ought to be interesting. But they've got KU. Beyond that, though, like Oak State, I mean, they're getting better.
That's
maybe
the last
it appears.
Maybe, yeah.
West Virginia has been good, so that's definitely a team at 5-1 right now. That
4-1, I think.
4-1. Okay, yeah, because they just had the bye. BYU, they're sitting
BYU,
pretty good,
yep.
and TCU's right now. So yeah, I mean. That's kind of, I mean, toughest upcoming schedule I get, but yeah, it doesn't look that daunting from like Oklahoma's perspective, especially compared to like the top three when you're looking at the fact that they're all playing each other and the others like Utah and Oregon State's not even on there, but they're going to play them in most cases. And so, yeah, like the Pac-12 toughness is way tougher than Oklahoma's, for example. But, yeah, I can't wait to see some of these big loaded matchups down the stretch, especially out in the Pac. That's going to be a lot of fun. And, yeah, can Oklahoma just keep it together? They're in the driver's seat now. But, they still got to go out and win 6 more games and then go win a 7th, potentially in the Big 12 title game. So, yeah, that's going to be, a fun little stretch run here in the second half with so many teams bunched up.
The Big 12 men's basketball just put out their preseason team, and that was something I just happened to see. And if you look at the first 5, Craig, this is not a part of Off the Radar, is it?
No.
Okay, good. This just came out. So the Big 12 men's basketball team, Hunter Dickinson is the preseason player of the year, the newcomer. The freshman of the year, Jacoby Walter from Baylor. The top 5, these are the preseason first-team players. Dickinson, DeJuan Harris, Kansas, Emmanuel Miller from TCU, Max Asmus from Texas, who came in from Tech, Oral Roberts, and then L.J. Cryer, the former Baylor guard, who's now at Houston. So those are the 5 first-team all Big 12 preseason basketball players.
Yeah, not a surprise on Hunter Dickinson being both a player and newcomer of the year. Not a surprise on Jacoby Walter either. I was a little surprised that Baylor didn't have one on the first team, but then when you look at who it is, you knew Max Asmus was going to be there. He's been a stellar player in college basketball for 3 years. L.J. Cryer can score. I guess technically there's a player from Baylor. He's just not playing for them anymore. I'm going to be very interested to see how L.J. Cryer or how Kelvin Sampson makes L.J. Cryer fit Houston in their style because it's different than what Scott Drew does here. So,
which might make him, in a different player, more productive in some ways. Although at times he was productive.
He's going to have to play more defense than he did in the last couple of years. Yep. So, and not that Scott Drew doesn't push defense, but that was certainly his shortcoming. And part of it is because L.J. Cryer is just not a big guy, so he would have games where he just had a bit of a physical mismatch on him, and couldn't really man them up as much. So we'll see. I think he'll be fine in Houston. I don't think he scored a lot of points, and Houston needed that. They needed a guy who can put in 20 most nights.
It's cool to see. I'm not in basketball mode in any way, shape, or form right now, but I know that it's time for that, and that's got a lot of people excited, and I'd imagine in some fan bases like Baylor's, super excited. They've already turned the page, I think, probably in some people's case, because they want to watch a winner, and Baylor's expected to win, but I know that there's obviously going to be a lot of other teams that expect the same as well, and interesting to see them not have a first-team guy, but have a number of honorable mentions. It's going to be a mighty fine league once the ball gets rolling, and it's going to be interesting to have these 4 new teams involved and kind of how that changes the mix, so to speak. Looking forward to just all that getting underway and the debates over who belongs where and who should have been first team and all that. I'll let everybody else argue over those things, but it's cool to see that get dropped. And good luck to L.J. Cryer. He feels like he's got a better chance at Houston to go do whatever it is he's looking to do, and that'll be a spicy matchup whenever he and the Bears take on each other. And I just looked up the Gonzaga thing you mentioned a few minutes ago. I don't see anybody mentioning that Brett Yormark's visiting Gonzaga, so I guess you might be the first with that report, and that's obviously of note. But as Matt Rhodes told us the other day. That's very much a process that they're undergoing right now. So that's just, the latest step in that process, I guess, is him going out there and visiting. But, I hadn't seen that mentioned by anybody.
West Virginia fans are all in the chat room as they should be. Joey Foster, doesn't it feel like it's the battle of the hot seat tonight? West Virginia fans would never agree with a loss tonight. Houston is just bad. Houston, you have a problem. It's West Virginia 34-13.
You'll hear Jed Drenning on that here in a little bit. I pre-recorded that a few minutes ago, like you said, and he's got an interesting perspective on that game, and where it sits. And there's a lot of the the hot seat thing. I think for Neil Brown, he's not going to breathe easy until it's over, because I think that's part of the thing that's fueling him. And we get Max Olson got a great column on it.
Yep, he joins
today,
us at 4 too.
And he'll be on. But they about how they're fueling their season. I do think that it'll be interesting, but. West Virginia's defense just playing so well right now.
Stingy.
I do not see Houston not making the mistakes that they've made in the other games.
The hot seat talk has cooled off, as it rightfully should, but I don't think it takes much to get that burning again. And I think tonight would be the way to get that start to smoke a little bit, would be to go out there and lay an egg against your old head coach and Dana Holgerson, who left you for Houston when Houston wasn't even a Big 12 team. Mm-hmm. He left you for a group of non-group of 5 team. For a group of 5 team?
Yeah, G5. They were
I'm
G5.
thinking Power 5. Yeah, for a group of 5 team.
Yes.
So, that was a slap in the face, when that happened. And That's not something that West Virginia fans have forgotten. So there is that little element there of, facing your old coach in the place that he left you for. I think, Houston's obviously got a lot of issues, but if I'm West Virginia, it's a Thursday night, it's not your typical setting. And as we saw last week, Kansas State rolling into Stillwater on a Friday night, or, in any of these weeknight games, really, they can get a little wonky. So I would be on upset alert if I was West Virginia. I'd also be very confident that you have the better team overall, but there are questions about the offense still. Can the defense hold up as it has been? It should be a fascinating little game between these two, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the end result. I do think it is a West Virginia win when all is said and done.
Yep,
I don't know to what extent, but I also know that it better be a win in some cases, because that would be an awful look and be a huge momentum derailer if they were to go to Houston and lose to Dana and company.
West Virginia guy 56. Let's go Mountaineers. I don't know if Kyle Little is in yet, or S. Michael DeHart, both West Virginia guys that are yet in the chat room, but they'll be here probably at some point. Chris Cobb, who's an A&M guy. West Virginia should roll tonight, definitely. Patrick Nelson, let's go Mountaineers, and on and on. And so tried to mention some of you who are in the chat room right now. Alan Tran, I like Neil Brown. And so there we are with that. That game is tonight. Craig will have more off the radar with other stuff, including Major League Baseball and more a little bit later on. So if you have not had your ears checked, put your earplugs in if you are sensitive to noise, because Dave Softy Mahler, KJR Radio in Seattle, if you've ever heard him before, he comes, and what I think is full throttle, stick your head in the tank of gasoline, light it with a match. He's on top of that, plus with a push of a button, pop. He's next to talk about Washington and Oregon. Paul Catalina's conversation with West Virginia sideline reporter Jed Drenning, Max Olson, Taylor McCarg. Also today we'll have our college football picks, off the radar, the top 5, and more. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress is my dentist, and I'm happy as hell that he is. He does a great job with his staff. It's a big place. It's got a lot of different people that help you, whether it's something just for teeth cleaning or something that maybe is what has been planned for either a root canal or a cavity, or maybe even if it's something pretty serious like a tooth being pulled, crowns, implants, all of the above. They do that, and they have an incredible staff. When you walk in the door, you just kind of feel at home. That's the way I have been from the first time I've ever been there. And then Dr. Steve Childress and his staff make me feel that way too. I've been there a lot in the last couple of years. He has done a lot for me when it comes to my dental work the last couple of years. And now I feel like I'm ahead of the curve, although still playing catch up. But he has given me the game plan, and I'm sticking to it. And it's been great. It's nice to go back when there's an appointment that's just for a teeth cleaning and not worried about what else they might find. Dr. Steve Childress and his great staff and Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Alan Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible line of 2023 models like the Grand Cherokee, Renegade, Wrangler, and Gladiator. Come see what Alan Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient, with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6, and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started.
We are back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina trying to track down Softy with KJR in Seattle. Craig Smoak, David Smoak, and here we are on the set. Owen is here today, back in the studio with us. Good to have Owen with us as well. A lot of people playing nice in the chat room. West Virginia fans, Texas fans, a lot of people playing nice in the chat room, and that's good to see. Patrick Nelson, almost everyone in Morgantown wanted him gone, in reference to Dana Holgerson when he left that job to take the job at the University of Houston. Just a horrendous loss for the Purple, but got to give Gundy and the Pokes credit. They rallied in the off week. Cornelio, thank you for that, looking back at last week. And, of course, what? Okay, all right. Also,
finish your thought.
About what?
What he said.
No, just reading it off the chat room. People are talking about last weekend's games and also this weekend's game.
That's talking about K-State and the big win over K-State. So, that was a good win for Oklahoma State, kind of bouncing all over. But, that was a bad look for Will Howard and company. And, hopefully for them, he has a much sharper game. I mean, going to Lubbock on a Saturday night is going to be tough, and they've won a couple games in a row now. Feels like it's an opportunity for Tech to, get something, really going momentum-wise, and they kind of already do, but to beat K-State and beat them at home at night and have 3 wins in a row and, be well above, I guess 500 and 500 in Big 12 play would be, tremendous for Joey McGuire and company, and more along the lines of what we expected of them coming out of the preseason when there was a lot of hype surrounding them. They got off to the rough start, but, you look at what they lost. They lost a close game to a really good Wyoming team, lost a close game to a really good Oregon team. So it wasn't like they were, putting up stinkers necessarily. But, is this a turning point? If they beat K-State, then there's going to be all that hype that, kind of went to the wayside, roaring back. And for K-State, that was a tough loss for them. And how they regroup will be very interesting because that's the first time in a long time I've seen really any pronounced public criticism of Chris Kleiman and kind of how they operated during that game. So not that, fired him or anything crazy, but he usually gets pretty good marks, and he did not get good marks coming out of that game last week.
Wet blanket. Maybe Oklahoma State was why K-State had a horrendous game. Maybe a thought. Wet blanket, of course, a big Oklahoma State fan, and responding to somebody earlier that K-State was just horrendous in that game. But it was a hell of a win for Oklahoma State, no question at all. Alan, we won Houston, a Baylor fan. You need to worry about the off week. Also, let's see, from Bracket Cat, they definitely were, speaking in a compliment of Oklahoma State, but we didn't respond at all to be getting punched in the mouth. He's discussing Kansas State, and you just don't see that very often. Is what you were mentioning about Kleiman. You don't see a Kansas State team lose a game. When you lose it, you don't see them get punched in the mouth like that.
Yeah, I think for Chris Kleiman last week, he made a couple of those decisions that were a little bit maybe more aggressive than the fans wanted, but I think he was trying to light a spark under his team, and he saw that if they didn't get those, then they probably weren't going to win anyway. So
that's from Softy saying, go ahead and try calling again. I'm sorry about that.
Right. Yeah, but I think that was it. Like sometimes, yes, criticize the coach all you want, but that was the players not showing up to a level last week. And look, to Wet Blanket's point, Oklahoma State played really well. I mean, they really played within themselves and kind of found something last week against Kansas State at home. So, absolutely. Credit more to Oklahoma State than I do to knocking Chris Kleiman.
Yeah, but Kansas State with the expectations, Craig, And
not trying to place blame on one side, just explaining both sides of it. And so, Oklahoma State deserves credit. Alan Bowman appears to be the guy. Ollie Gordon appears like he's the guy now in the backfield with them as well. Got some good receivers. Defense is good. So, Oklahoma State deserves credit. But knocking one's not saying the other doesn't deserve it or whatever, however that's coming out in the chat. I just think that from K-State's point of view, that was a really ugly game and one that they obviously know they need to, improve upon. And for Oklahoma State, that's a building block potentially for them turning around their season and getting something strong going. And maybe Bowman Gordon in the backfield is what they needed from the very beginning, but definitely some positivity coming out of Stillwater where there wasn't a lot to be found before.
Word is Kleiman was as hot as he's ever been in the locker room after that game. We'll see if it works out. Of course, you just got to clear that one and move on. And how about the one this weekend? Washington and Oregon in a great top 10 tilt. The game, of course, is Softy Mahler. Dave Softy Mahler, KJR in Seattle. Get ready. Stick your head in the tank of gasoline. Let's light it with the match. Softy, it's a great game. It's a great year for the Pac-12. How pumped up is everybody in Seattle right now?
A little excited, man. This is the first time ever in the history of the Oregon-UW rivalry there's been a game with two top 10 teams, and it's going to be the last one ever as Pac-12 teams. So go figure, man. 100-plus years, Smokey, of playing this game, and it took them until the last year ever of the Pac-12 conference to finally play a couple games as a top 10 team, and that's what you'll see on Saturday.
So, Softy, this is a game where it's kind of hard to feel who has a disadvantage because both of these teams are so good on both sides of the ball. Where does this game swing, in your opinion?
Well, I just think it's a matter of who can control the passing offense of the other team because you got a team in UW who's got the number one passing offense in college football. They're going up against the number 5 passing defense in Oregon. But on the other side, Oregon's got the number 10 passing offense in college football. And they're going up against the number 91 passing defense in college football in Washington. Now, the numbers are a little skewed because Michael Penix has barely played in the fourth quarter all year long. The starting defense for Washington has barely played in the fourth quarter all year long. They've only had one four-quarter game, and that was 2 Saturdays ago against Arizona down there in the desert. So, look, you go back to that Cal game, UW gave up 3 touchdowns after the score was 52-12, for God's sake. So, things like that have kind of inflated the numbers, I think, on the opposite end a little bit for UW's defense. So we're going to find out. But you know what, man, Smokey, in the end, these two teams really haven't played anybody. I mean, UW beat a really bad Michigan State team on the road. They were leading 41-0 late third quarter in East Lansing. And Oregon came back and beat Texas Tech, as you know, in Lubbock. And I'm not sure how good the Red Raiders are this year. So I don't know if either team has really accomplished much of anything to crow about so far after 5 games.
Softy, how much has home field mattered in this series, and how much do you think it matters on Saturday in a game where two teams seem to be so evenly built?
Well, UW beat them in Eugene last year, and they should have beaten them in 2018, but they missed a 37-yard field goal, and the game ended up going to Oregon. So home field really in the last 5 or 6 years hasn't really mattered much, to be totally honest with you. You guys know there was a stretch in the mid-2000s to 2015, 2016, where Oregon kind of owned UW, right? They had that big, long winning streak, and UW just could not do a damn thing right against the Ducks in that series. And now it's 3-3 in the last 6 games. And as I said, should have been 4-2 because UW should have won 3 in a row from 2016 to 2018. But I'm not sure if home field really means a lot, to be honest with you. There were a lot of Husky fans there in 2016. There's going to be a lot of Oregon fans here Saturday in Husky Stadium. So it's going to be 70,000 people. And I'd say about 15 to 20% of them might be Oregon fans, to be honest with you.
We just put up a graphic that's from College Football Focus on the toughest remaining schedules among the teams who are ranked in the top 10. And the first 3 were Pac-12, USC, Washington, and Oregon, because, of course, we know that it's a battering ram. How much fun will this be watching all this unfold?
Well, that's the thing, is that I'm just concerned the Pac-12 is just going to cannibalize itself, right, and just eat their own when it's all said and done. I mean, UW and Oregon play this weekend, and then Oregon's got Wazoo, Utah, USC, Oregon State, and then UW's got USC, Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State. Those are all top 25 teams. They got 4 top 25 teams left the rest of the way. Oregon State's got a brutal schedule. Wazoo has a brutal schedule. USC has the same schedule. Everybody has a bear in November. Everybody has an absolute gauntlet in November because everybody plays everybody in this conference, man. So it's going to be absolutely a war in the final month of the half of the year. I don't think you're going to see any team in this conference go undefeated. I'm not sure if you'll see a team come out with one loss, to be honest with you. So that's the concern when it comes to putting a Pac-12 team in the Final Four, that the schedule is just too damn hard the rest of the way for anybody to get a guaranteed spot in the Final Four.
Softy Mahler with us, KJR in Seattle, with us on 365 Sports.
Softy, everything has come up roses for Washington so far, except for that the Arizona game was a win. Do you credit that to Washington maybe looking ahead a little bit, or is that Arizona's getting better?
Well, you saw what Arizona did to USC last weekend. Yeah. They took them to triple overtime. I'm not saying that USC's got a great defense. As a matter of fact, USC's defense stinks. Their defense is terrible, all right? It's been terrible under Lincoln Riley for the last couple of years, and I think as long as Lincoln Riley's there, you guys know what the guy did at Oklahoma. He never played defense in the Big 12 at Oklahoma. He wants to win every game 51-50 for crying out loud. So I'm starting to think this is who this guy is when it comes to building a football team. He wants a 5-hour game, and every game Lincoln Riley coaches, you should bet the over. So I don't think USC is that good, but I also think Arizona is greatly improved. This Fafita kid, the quarterback that took over for Jaden DeLora, he can play, and he played pretty well against the Huskies. But, guys, just consider this. In that Arizona game, Washington won, and they were a fumble away at the Arizona 4-yard line from going 38-17 in the fourth quarter. Michael Penix didn't even throw a touchdown pass in that game, and they still won on the road in Tucson, which has been kind of a house of horrors. Any stadium in the state of Arizona, whether Tempe with ASU or Tucson with Arizona, has been kind of a pain in the ass for UW, to be honest with you. So that's one thing I'm not going to miss going to the Big Ten, is having to play games in places like that. But yeah, I mean, that was a grind, man, no doubt. And I think in the end, it might actually prove to be a positive for this game with Oregon, because UW had not played a 4-quarter game up until then. Now they've got one in their back pocket, and they know how to finish.
How much conversation still revolves around the fact that this is the end of the road, or have all of the ranked teams and all of these big matchups that are still to come? I mean, like looking at Washington's last month, it's all top 25 teams the way it stands right now. And I know that'll change because they'll beat up on each other, but how much has some of the talk been about the off the field, or has the on the field been so good that it's kind of pushed all that to the side for right now?
Well, no, it's a daily thing with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Pac-2. The Pac-2 is Oregon State and Washington State, and Beaver fans and Washington State fans don't miss an opportunity to tell Oregon fans and UW fans how stupid they are for going to the Big Ten, right? I mean, that's a daily thing on social media. So, guys, look, it's a move that if Oregon State and Washington State were offered the same move by the Big Ten, they would have been out the door. And anybody who disagrees with that is an idiot, all right? There's just it's not even worth having the freaking debate, for God's sake. It's so dumb to even talk about. So, in the end, the Pac-12, the remaining schools, were offered a streaming-only deal on Apple with no guarantee of being on linear TV, and they said no. And they should have said no, right? I mean, people think about how crappy the Pac-12 media rights deal was, 2-3 years ago. They signed this deal, it's even worse. And when you're desperate like Washington State and Oregon State are, you'll take anything. Because, guys, let's be honest, Oregon State and Wazoo, they're staring at $4 million a year in the Mountain West. That's what they're looking at right now. So they're looking at potentially $20+ million less per year than what they were making in the Pac-12. So I don't blame them for being angry. I don't blame them for being irrational. I probably would be too if I were them. But every single day, this is a UW and Oregon ruined the Pac-12. You killed the conference. We could have survived without the LA schools, which I disagree with, by the way. But there's not one day that goes by that this move to the Big Ten is not talked about, at least amongst Cougar and Husky fans. The Apple Cup this year, guys, is going to be gnarly. Absolutely gnarly. I don't know if you guys have ever been to an Apple Cup in Seattle. This is the year to come, because they may not play it for a long time after this year.
Yeah, that's one I have circled on the calendar, Softy. It's certainly, like you said, gnarly is a great way to describe it. When you hear things like today coming out about the Comcast thing is worse, and a couple weeks ago, the Utah president was the one who pushed the $50 million a year thing.
Right.
Does that surprise you, or are you just like, yeah, I knew this? This is a poorly run conference?
Well, we've known that for years, that this was a poorly run conference, and we've known for years that the conference presidents were arrogant. We've known for years the conference presidents really don't understand the sports landscape, especially when it comes to college football, and they paid the price for it. I mean, the story, again, that Canzano had, that Utah's president was looking for $50 million a year. They turned down the latest deal about a year and a half ago from ESPN. I just think there was some arrogance there, and they really did not understand how this entire thing ran, and now they're paying the price for it. So I think in the end, UW, Oregon, USC, UCLA, hell, I even think schools like Arizona are going to be fine. Arizona is moving into an incredible basketball conference, man. You guys bringing Arizona on in the Big 12 with Arizona's history. Now there's rumors that Gonzaga maybe moving into the Big 12. That's going to be an unbelievable basketball conference, man. Maybe the best in the country when it's all said and done. So those schools, I think, are going to be just fine. But for schools like Washington State and Oregon State, there's some collateral damage there, and I do worry about, hanging on to coaches and, not having to cut sports and things like that. So I don't blame them for being a little bit irritated. But the Pac-12 has been a joke for decades, guys. You guys know that. We used to rip on Tom Hansen, who's the former Pac-12 commissioner, Pac-10 commissioner, and then we ripped on Larry Scott, and now we're ripping on George Playoff. What's the most consistent theme there? The conference president. That's the theme.
All right. I want to give you as long as you want. I know you have your own show right around the corner, but so are you really good fans with fans from Oregon State and Washington State, or you just rile them up whenever you can?
So I got some of my closest buddies are Cougar fans. I've got 3 or 4 pals of mine, golf buddies of mine, great buddies of mine, almost brothers of mine that are Cougar fans. And I tread lightly around them when it comes to right? I mean, there's a couple of things you don't want to joke about. You don't want to ever bring up the term Cougat. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that or not, but when the Cougars choke a big lead away in the fourth quarter, 10, 14, 21 points in the fourth quarter, we call that Couganing, okay? Anybody blows anything. There's a big collapse in a basketball game. Oh, you couged it. The Mariners blow a 7-run lead in the 9th inning. Oh, you couged it. So you can't bring that up with them, and you can't bring up this whole thing about the Pac-12 and the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC with Stanford and Cal. Every now and then you'll run into somebody who's a pain in the ass, and you'll tell them, hey, good luck in the big sky next year, pal. They don't like hearing that whatsoever. But my buddies that actually I like and I respect, I would never go down that road because I know how much they're hurting, man, with this whole thing. I got a couple of pals that are Oregon buddies, but for the most part, I'm surrounded by way more Cougars than I am Ducks. Way more.
Last thing, can you try right now to rank the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams has to be number one as the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. I think right behind him is Michael Penix. I think right behind him is Bo Nix. I think right behind him is Cam Ward. I think right behind him is Shedeur Sanders. And then I would put a guy like Dante Moore of UCLA. I think Dante Moore is going to be a player down the road for the Bruins. DJ Ungalele of Oregon State started off kind of slow, but it's starting to come on. I mean, you kind of feel bad for teams like California and Stanford, who don't even have a quarterback that's even a household name. Nobody even knows who these guys are, for crying out loud. Noah Fafita may be the best quarterback of the four between Arizona, Arizona State, California, and Stanford. But I put Caleb Williams number one right now, and I put Michael Penix 2 and Bo Nix 3.
Thank you, Softy. Appreciate you, buddy. Have a great week. Enjoy the game. Softy.
All right, boys. Later.
Yep, KJR Radio in Seattle.
Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a game. Looking very much forward to sitting down, and thankfully got a full Saturday open for the only time, I guess, in this whole 6-month period or so, and very much looking forward to being able to just sit and watch all of the games and not be bouncing, to and from a stadium or eyes elsewhere. So, that's one I think you just toss a coin. It's pretty fair, but I've seen a lot of pro-Oregon. I've seen the arguments for Washington, and that's going to be a heck of a showcase for those schools and for the Pac-12. But there's also that side story of just the mess of management that created this whole situation where this is the last time those two teams will play as Pac-12 teams. This will be the Big Ten game of the week at some point in the future, and need more, like with anything else involved in that story. I wanted to circle back, like as far as the payments owed and all that. I'm not sure if that's we need to see more from the likes of the experts out there. Yeah. I'm not sure if that depletes the reserves or whatever, like you're seeing thrown out there, and kind of as we touched on earlier. Because I've seen a couple comments where that's being already deducted, like that money per school. But the point of the story is that they lost even more money than they thought, or owed even more money than they thought. And so how that comes out on the other end, who the heck knows? But I think he just nailed it. Just the mismanagement over the years. You're seeing all that bubbling up, and as they sit here and get ready to take their final breath, it's all kind of coming out now. Just how shoddy it was all ran to begin with.
I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily like a direct hit on the funds that you're talking about, but it's all not good news.
No, of course.
It's not.
Yeah.
If you're Oregon State and Washington State, and you're trying to say like, oh well, we this and this and this and this. Part of the thing you're trying to say is that the Pac-12 networks have value, and that's why you're trying to keep them and do that. And they clearly don't have as much as what you think.
That's the part I don't understand.
Part of it is it's like with the conference breaking up, I would, if I were the other 10 teams, I'd be like, you guys really want this? Like, we're leaving because of it. I know that you're kind of saddled with it, but we could just sell all these cameras to someone who needs them.
Like, you don't inherit that and then you just automatically get broadcast. You have to have agreements with TV partners, and if they're not interested, then there's not a network.
Yeah.
So if there's not a network that, I mean, that's way above my pay grade, but great, you have all those cameras, but who wants those? And what are they going to use them for? And I don't know. It sounds great of you just get a network, but there's a little bit more of a complicated nature to than you just launch the Mountain West network or the Big 12 network or the whatever network. It's not as simple as just flipping the switch on that. So that's all to be figured out in the wash, and it's got to be theirs to begin with, but that's still being determined right now. But just in general, it's all very muddy waters and very confusing, and that's why the legal experts will be the ones to sort through it all.
We will have Max Olson in 20 minutes. He wrote a column today that was really good on West Virginia, but somebody that knows West Virginia about as well as anybody. And, of course, we've had a lot of different guests and analysts, including Tony Caridi and Jed Drenning with Paul Catalina on tonight's game in Houston. This is 365 Sports. The city of Woodway coming up later on in this month is going to be that father, son, grandfather cookout. October 21st, and you have a chance, if you want to be a part of that, to have family involved. Double R is going to provide hamburgers and hot dogs. They're going to have all the bounce house, and they'll have all sorts of rides and other things as well. And you can go to discoverwoodway.com for more information if you want to register to enter and be a part of that for a great memory. Father, sons, grandfathers, uncles, you name it, they can be a part of this event. It's the first time they put this event on. And if you ever travel into Waco and you're looking for hotels and you look around Waco and there's not enough or there's nothing available, don't forget the ones that they have in Woodway. There are 7 of them. It's discoverwoodway.com.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bar, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back into 365 Sports. Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter, joins us now. And Jed, Houston and West Virginia tonight. West Virginia is on a roll right now, playing with tremendous confidence. Neil Brown entered this season very much on the hot seat. I don't know how they feel in Morgantown now, but as far as I'm concerned, you can turn the temperature all the way down on that. He has proven already what he can do with this team when they are healthy and ready to go and navigate some injuries. And this one means a lot, right? Because it's against Dana Holgorsen. What's the vibe around the Mountaineers right now?
Well, to be honest with you, they all mean a lot, obviously. And there's no empty chairs on this schedule. So you have to bring it each week. And there's truth to the fact that you absolutely, in this league, you have to take them one at a time, because the first time you don't show up and play good football, you're going to pay for it by multiple scores. And Dana is a guy that recognizes matchups. I'm sure he's game planning against some of the deficiencies that he's seen. Our bye week, for us, I can say, came at a time when it was desperately needed. We played 4 really physical football games in the first 5 weeks of the season. And we had guys dropping. Some will be back, some won't. But we got some much-needed rest. But we're going to take Houston's best shot. We have little doubt about that. But we better come and bring it again tonight.
Well, we had Dana Holgorsen on the show a couple of times, and one of them right after the schedule was released, and he said, look, I'm not stupid enough to think that this wasn't, very intentional of the Big 12 to do this way, because this is a storyline. Who do you think it's more of a storyline for, West Virginia or for Dana Holgorsen?
That's a good question. I don't know that Neil even talked about it this week. He's like, look, Dana's a guy who had a lot of success here. He had a couple 10-win seasons. He had the Orange Bowl win. So he did a lot of good things with the program. He was the guy who superintended the transition into the Big 12. So I don't know if there's a lot of ill will harbored, at least internally. Now, there is that factor that, when your girlfriend breaks up with you, there's some ill feelings that are harbored, and that's more the fan base, So I don't know. Maybe it's a little overstated or oversold. To me, it would have been probably more of a storyline and more of a sizzling TV storyline had Dana been coming to Morgantown on a Thursday night. That would have kind of been more interesting. But, these Houston fans, is the first time they've ever faced the West Virginia Mountaineers. I can't imagine mean a whole lot to them. There's no animus there. So, but yeah, I think it's just 2 football teams that are trying to find their way into the second half of the season in a positive fashion. And I fully expect, under the circumstances, for Dana coming off a bye, because I saw him, coach very good football games coming off a bye at West Virginia. I've seen him do it at Houston. So I think that storyline is probably dominating a little more than it should, in that it's our first matchup ever. It will be interesting irrespective of who the coach was. So here we are.
How much danger is in this game outside of all that, in that Houston really needs one to get back on the right track, because it has been a wildly disappointing season for them so far?
Yeah, I mean, in many respects it has, but you look at how they battled in some of those games that the other team was able to separate in the second half, whether it was Texas Tech, whether it was TCU. I mean, when they put their best foot forward, they're pretty scary. And now, if they can do that for the balance of 60 minutes and find a way to hold up, then they're going to be competing against most of the teams in this league and threatening to beat them. But when you look at them from a skill standpoint, they got skill on both sides of the ball. Now, Dana had to retool his offensive line in the offseason. They got, despite having maybe the one of the more exceptional linemen in the country at left tackle, they had to retool elsewhere. I think the strength of that offense is in the receiver room. They're very deep. They're very talented. They're very versatile. So no doubt in my mind, Dana is looking at our secondary and finding matchups that appeal to him, and he has a very creative way of getting you in space in places you don't want to be in space against. And so we're going to have our hands full on the defensive side, and on the offensive side, again, they got two big heavies on the interior. When they're playing solid, they're playing solid, and they're tough to move. They got two edge guys. We're dinged up with our offensive line and moving some parts around as well. So, I mean, we're going to have our hands full with challenges on both sides of the ball. They got corners that can play. So, I mean, this is one of those things that if you don't show up, you're going to find yourself down by multiple scores in this environment very quickly. So we better show up, and we better show up early.
What's been the spark in your estimation of this team, especially, look, they're not in the last 3 weeks of this winning streak, scoring 45 points. They're doing this with defense. They've done it with different quarterbacks. They've done it with the running game. What's been the spark that turned this team around in light of their confidence?
But, I do think that there was a belief in the culture that continued into the offseason, and we felt that we underachieved and underperformed last year. And we marched into the offseason with that belief. And then when the media picked us to finish 14th, that was like Neil Brown standing over some burning embers trying to get a fire going. Somebody handed him a hose with an endless supply of jet fuel. And that really, really has lit a fire under this entire program. And that's the mantra. I mean, I don't go 30 seconds without hearing a player or a coach, somebody screaming 14, 14, 14. That's what it's all about. And they say, look, you can say what you want about us now on our winning streak. We're 14th in the Big 12 until the season ends and we prove otherwise. So that has served as tremendous motivation. But at some point, and we're trying to continue to become a more well-rounded football team. We won the last 3 games that you just talked about. We won 4 in a row, but the last 3 in particular, with less than 350 yards in each of those games. The last time West Virginia did that was in 1996 when we had the number 1 ranked defense in the country. Now that is on some level unsustainable. Good defense isn't unsustainable, but at some point the offense is going to have to emerge, and we're going to find ourselves in games that aren't just rock fights where we get to drag the other team into an alley, but it's going to be somewhat of a shootout. And, you might suspect that could come against the Dana Holgorsen coach team, so you better be ready offensively, and we need to keep cranking on special teams, so we need to be a well-rounded 3-phase football team. And so far through 5 games, we've done that. We just have to get better at it.
How do you feel about how both quarterbacks have played when they've been called on?
Well, both of them, for different reasons, I'm very happy. First of all, Garrett kept the football out of harm's way. We haven't come close to seeing his best football yet. We've seen him off script. But from a run game standpoint, quarterback run game standpoint, for various reasons, we haven't seen the best of him doing that. And I do think that's when he's at his best. We're going to start to get to some of that. We're going to start to push the football vertical. We need some help from the receiver room. And it'd be nice if a receiver catches an RPO and the conflict defender drops to the box and makes somebody miss and picks up big yardage for us. But even in the run game, which is what we've leaned on throughout the course of the first 5 games with CJ and the rest of the crew, it hasn't been as explosive as it was a year ago. So those splash plays need to come there as well. But with Garrett, he's done a great job of keeping the football out of harm's way. I think he's going to continue to improve. And with Nico, I mean, how can you not be happy with how that kid was thrust into the fire against Pitt, managed that football game for the better part of 3+ quarters, 3.5 quarters, and then came out and made his first Big 12 start against a very good Texas Tech football team and helped us get through that one and come out on top. So I think that room's in solid shape. But like the rest of the football team, we have to find ways each week to get better and better, because where we're at as a team right now through 5 games, it's good enough to be good through 5 games with one of the more difficult schedules in the country. But if we don't get better, if we plateaued, it's going to be an ugly final 7 games. We need to continue to get better in all 3 phases.
Now, I realize it's still early, only 5 games in for West Virginia because they've had their bye. But, Ren Baker, sometimes, the new AD comes in and he It would not have been a surprise probably to anybody had he fired Neil Brown last year based on how new ADs work most of the time. Look, this is not my guy. I'm not going to even take a chance on it. I'm going to go bring my guy in, and that way I don't have to answer these questions. But he bet on Neil Brown this year and didn't make that move. And now he's looking at a 4-1 team. Has Neil Brown done enough to where that discussion is over?
Well, what Neil, and this is obviously way above my pay grade, but when you listen to Ren talk, what Ren talks about is he sees things globally. He spends a lot of time in the building. He's been on the sidelines for every game. So he studies with great scrutiny every aspect of not just the football team, but all the sports as well. Now, he says, ultimately, we're held to account by how many games we win. But he said, I'd stop and consider all the factors that lead up and contribute to your ability to win those games. So if I see functional aspects of a program across the board, but it hasn't translated to wins yet, I have to believe on some level that's ultimately going to happen if I can find my way to help nudge it in the right direction. And I believe that's kind of his mindset. But there's also that school of thought with ADs that I've heard for years that an AD is not truly on the clock until he hires his head coach. So why rush it? Right? I mean, if you're a new AD, why rush it? I mean, why do you want to start that clock ticking right away when you've got a guy that has a building that's in really good shape? The culture in the building is really solid, and it looks like we're just a couple good breaks away from turning a corner. And through 5 games, we've caught those breaks that in previous years we weren't catching. But again, you got to continue with this type of thing. When I look at what scares me, and every week I can talk myself into being scared against any of these Big 12 teams, but with Houston, they're +5 in turnover margin, good enough for number 2 in the conference. Now, we're a West Virginia team that despite the 4-1 start, we've only won the turnover battle 1 time in 5 games. In fact, this West Virginia program has only won the turnover battle 1 time in the last 11 games dating back to last year. That, too, is unsustainable. So when I say we have to continue to find ways to get better, it includes ball security and those types of things that Houston, for all their deficiencies that have hurt them this year, they've mastered that part of the game. And so if they're going to beat you, obviously they're going to try and make that be a part of it. So with Ren Baker, above my pay grade, but that's my thinking. And I have plenty of ways to talk myself into thinking why Houston could win this football game if we don't show up and play out tonight.
I know one of the games that you won the turnover battle in, Jed.
Yeah, there was one.
I didn't even have to think about it. I can go back to last year, and that's an interesting game because that was the game that I think has derailed Baylor since then.
Well, that was last year. And you know what? The 11 games started after the Baylor game. It's interesting you'd point to that. Yes, we were +2 in the Baylor game.
Yeah.
And ever since the Baylor game, we played 11 games, that 43-40 game last year. The one game that we won the turnover battle in the last 11 games was Pitt. We've since had a hand in turning their quarterback into a tight end. But yeah, that Baylor game, that was critical. That was critical. I mean, those turnovers last year. And you got to figure, you're going to have, that's exactly the type of football game that I'm talking about. We haven't won a 43-40 game this year, but at some point you get to 10. You're going to have to, because what I get out of this Mountaineer team, I studied very closely Neil and his days at Troy and his 4 years at Troy before and when he was hired. So I have a pretty good thumb on the pulse of the culture and the type of football teams that he had down there. It's starting to have that feel. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go out and rip off 30 wins in 3 years like he did at Troy. That's not what I'm saying. But stylistically, there are definitely parallels to be drawn between this Mountaineer team and those Troy teams. And those Troy teams, much like you've seen West Virginia through 5 games, is built to win rock fights. They were built to win rock fights. They'll drag you into an alley in a place you don't want to be and win in that style of football game. But there were types of games, the bowl games, particularly the win against Buffalo. They had a 50-30 bowl win, a 42-32 bowl win. There were some shootouts that he found a way to win, much like he found a way to win that shootout against Baylor last year. So the offense, to get to that point, is going to need to step up. And so far, we haven't seen enough out of the offense in them doing so, but they're going to have to play a more prominent role from a big play standpoint.
Jed Drenning, West Virginia sideline reporter, here with us on 365 Sports. Jed, enjoy the game tonight. Thanks for hopping on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Perfect segue to Max Olson, theathletic.com, who wrote about West Virginia. A nice surprise in the Big 12, and they've had a chip on their shoulder since Big 12 media days when the poll came out. Max joins us, and we had Neil Brown on, and he brought that up. He was upset about the colors behind him, even with the players' breakout session. Max, what a nice story. There's always a story or two in the Big 12, maybe every conference. Baylor 2 years ago, last year TCU. Is West Virginia, you think, that team this year?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it reminded me, honestly, a lot. The working on that piece, talking to Neil Brown and his players, So that story, it did remind me a lot in some ways of the stories I was writing about Kansas a year ago, right? Where I think that sometimes that's kind of that's tough for us in the prognostication business, especially now that Kansas is better. It's hard for us to kind of just assume who's the worst team in the Big 12 anymore, right? And so, I think, certainly the summer poll was wrong about West Virginia, and it didn't really make sense when you think about it. I mean, they shouldn't be behind all four of the new schools. That just doesn't make sense. But certainly that's exactly what they needed. That motivation of being 14th is something they've carried with them every day since. And, I think it's done them a lot of good. It's funny that this West Virginia team is not blowing anybody out. They're just winning close games finally. And that's, as you guys know, that's what it takes to actually be competitive in the Big 12 race, is just find a way to survive and advance in some tight games. And, it hasn't been very sexy. And I think there's still a lot of room to improve, especially on offense. They really have not gotten things clicking on offense yet. Now Garrett Green's healthy, but, certainly I think that's a team that in the run they've had now, beating Pitt, beating Texas Tech, beating TCU, I think it shows that there's a lot of toughness there. And, I think it's, with the way the schedule sets up, no Texas, no K-State, no Kansas on the schedule, they've got a chance here to rip off a bunch of wins.
Max, what is your opinion of Oklahoma after that big win last week?
Yeah, not surprised by the national conversation changing around Oklahoma quite a bit. I think you could tell people were just kind of skeptical, and maybe that's because of the strength of schedule or lack thereof. But, that was just such an impressive performance by Brett Venables and his crew. You knew they were deeply motivated after last year's Red River game. But I think it just goes to show, like, that is a coach who is just like at West Virginia. That's a coach who has surrounded himself with players who have his kind of attitude. And, we've talked about it before, how, what a good job Venables has done kind of flipping that roster, which you wouldn't think you'd need to coming in after Lincoln Riley. But I think that he has built a team that can compete for sure. And, are they a playoff team? I don't know. We'll see. They've got to kind of maintain this run and stay healthy and stuff. But certainly they made the statement they needed to make a week ago and find a way to win in the final minute, that this team's for real.
Does it really change how you feel about Texas at all, Max, the way that game went? I mean, there they had the lead with a little over a minute to go. Both these teams can still play each other again in Arlington. I think that's probably what most people expect at this point. Like you said, they got to handle their business, but does it change the big picture, that result at all?
I don't think so. I think Texas played pretty well in that game. And, if you get a stop on the final drive there, everyone's talking about Texas like maybe they're the number one team in the country or at least, top two, top three. So, I think what that game came down to, certainly they did a really good job of moving the ball in Oklahoma. It's just not very good situational football, not being able to punch in touchdowns in the red zone, getting stopped on fourth downs. Same story as their game against Alabama a year ago. I think it's a slim margin of error in a big game like that. And certainly third down, fourth down, the red zone, they've got to be a little bit better. And, I think Stark is probably right in saying, like, if that's the worst we're going to be this year, then we're really good. I think that, certainly Texas, they lose the mulligan there in terms of the race, but I wouldn't knock them too far down the ballot. I think they showed they're just as talented as Oklahoma.
How good and how we knew how good he was in high school, but there's hundreds of running backs who were good in high school. But Jonathan Brooks, it doesn't mean you forgot about Bijan or Roshan Johnson. Those guys were amazing. But he really has just exploded onto the scene. Great player at Hallettsville High School.
Yeah, and it's kind of cliche to say these days, but credit to him for sticking around because he was behind some really talented players. You could see flashes from Jonathan Brooks when he'd get a chance to carry the ball, in the fourth quarter of games that they put away, or second half of blowouts and stuff like that. You saw him make plays last year, and so it's not shocking that this kid can make people miss. And he's one of the top rushers in the country this year in terms of yardage. But yeah, real impressive player who clearly learned a lot from two studs in front of him. And, that's a talented room too. When you bring in CJ Baxter and some of the guys they have around him, I think that pushed him to get even better this year. And, that balance that they found in the run game, I think has surprised a lot of people.
Max, we've spent all week talking about Baylor. We're on the kind of inside of it, but from an outsider's perspective, 30,000-foot view, how does Dave Aranda turn this around?
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I got a lot of texts from people this week saying, "What did Mac Rhodes say about the offense?" That definitely resonated like outside of Waco.
Where did you hear that?
I can't say, but I saw some people a little bit surprised by that. I think that what can you say? There's nothing I can really come up with that's better than how y'all have probably dissected it at this point. But yeah, certainly that's one of those games, especially that stings when it happens against Joey McGuire. And I think that Baylor's just kind of got a pretty rough road ahead here, honestly. And look, you can definitely make the argument that they've got some good young talent in this program, and that those guys just need to develop. And there's some guys that I think are on the way up that will be good. But offensively, it's certainly not very scary right now. And I think you look at the rest of the schedule here, I think, Baylor's kind of going to become one of those games that other teams are circling as like pretty winnable at this point. So where's the fight? Where's the fire from these guys? It's easy to get into the X's and O's of like what needs to get fixed, what they need to execute better, but really want to see them like kind of show up with an attitude.
Yeah, it's hard to see them making the postseason, Max. But the other thing about what you just said and part of the conversation is, hey, Caden Jenkins looks like a heck of a player. Like the secondary looks like they could be really good, but it's the NIL era. Like they might have coaches in their DMs already, right? That are already saying like, hey, man, right. That all going on underground. But that's the thing is you can't even bank on having those guys for 3-4 years to build on, right?
I'm guessing they're probably having people look at their commit list too and kind of offer some of those guys and kind of start after those guys too. Yeah, I think that's true. And what is the NIL approach there? You guys would know better than I do, but I mean, I think that they're in a pretty tough spot right now. And I don't think that like I'm glad Chapin's back, right? I mean, Chapin's good this week.
Yeah, they have the open week, and he's going to be able. He played the last couple and has played. Well, it's not him. He's not the issue at all by any means.
Right, I know. That's usually that's like we got nobody there, and that's kind of when you see some of these Big 12 teams think getting him back, I think has been that's a positive. But yeah, you've got to find. This is that kind of time of the year where you get a break, you get a chance to get healthy and stuff. But man, we got to find out like, do these guys have some leaders and some people who can kind of drag them out of the hole here?
Do you think that's a launching point for Tech? I mean, they won a couple games in a row now. When you're just kind of scanning the Big 12, do you feel like maybe they're a team that's starting to get something going, or was that just a product of, hey, it's Baylor's not very good this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think kind of for Tech more bum luck than anything early on here. If they beat Oregon, we'd certainly be viewing Tech very differently, and they almost did. I think that certainly. You ask coaches around the conference, like they definitely recognize Baron Morton's legit and is going to be a really good quarterback. And so I think investing in his development this year is going to end up being a good thing. And the better he plays, the better they're going to play. And so, I think that that's a team that still has a lot of really good pieces. You saw Steve Linton finally pop this last week. I think that Tech is still going to be a factor in this race and probably has a chance here to win some important ones.
Max, thank you. How was what's your road trip? Where were you eating food somewhere?
You know what? I was at my brother's wedding over the weekend, and I missed all of the games last weekend. It was insane.
Oh, boy. All right.
Great time.
Well, congratulations to him.
Thank you.
I think Paul would give up a body part, right, to be able to take that role with him.
Look, I've offered Max, like, look, when you go to certain places, like I'll be the tour guide. Like I've offered him Tallahassee. So
if we hit Tallahassee season 2, you'll be getting the call. Don't worry.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Max.
Thanks, guys.
No, go ahead.
No, he's gone. I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he was up against it. We ran it a little bit late. What were you going to ask him though?
Oregon, Washington, the biggest game of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, I love. This is for me. What is that? What's that? A 2:30 kick? That game, Washington and Oregon. I look forward to this weekend. And Baylor's not playing. They're off completely, so there's no pregame show. Is sitting down late Saturday morning, go play a round of golf and just veg the hell out on college football all day. All day.
Yeah, I had to sit there and watch whatever that was at McLean the other night, and of course it lasted as long as possible. So by the time we got out of the press conference, there was like the Pac-12 after dark game. I guess what was it? Was it USC Arizona? Was that?
Yes.
So I got to see some of that, which was great. But beyond that, like that whole night window was completely wiped out for nothing, really, quite frankly. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to just being able to sit and watch and not have to worry about going anywhere or missing anything. And what a weekend to have to be able to do that. And not the biggest weekend in the world, but I mean just the 5 games that we're going to be picking, and then some of those contests in the Big 12 are going to be highly interesting. So yeah, can't wait to just have a full day, and the only day we'll have like that again for another 6 weeks or so. So yeah, definitely going to take advantage of that.
It's hard to imagine also that in high school football they are already in week 8.
Yeah.
Not that you would know.
No.
You
you
gave up on that.
I'm taking my wife to Austin this weekend.
Oh, that's nice. Very nice. Was it Austin, Lake Travis against Westlake or
no? No, I'm just
good for you.
I'm taking her. She is. There's this term like football widow, and that's usually for people whose husbands just like to watch football, but people who have to cover it and this is the reason this is the greatest job in the world. And she likes football, but she doesn't like it as much as me. So after the 3rd game, she's about tired of it, as where I'm like, well, this is only halfway through my day.
Yeah, it's only 3.
It's only 3 when we're to that point. So, but I get to say, well, no, I have to watch it. And she understands that, but I'm going to take her out for a weekend where, there's a couple games we'll watch when we're out about eating lunch and stuff in Austin. But we've worked it out. I mean, it's fine. It depends on how Florida State and Syracuse goes in that 11 o'clock window.
There you go.
Like how long we'll stay at a certain place. But yeah, no, I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
Are you going to go down? Go ahead, Craig. You going to say? Are you guys? Has she said much to you since yesterday afternoon about KU?
She's relieved. I mean, she's relieved. Her first text to me was 6 bleeping years that this is kind of hanging over and they're worried about it. And I said, well, look, I told you. I mean, all they had to do was kind of run out the clock, which is what they did on the IARP or whatever the committee was called.
Do you know what that committee is full of lawyers?
Well, here's the deal, though.
What is the one thing when you go in front of you have to be proven innocent? You're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah. So and I told her this about the Kansas penalties and the IARP. When it was announced that this would be their last thing, well, what were they going to do? Like, they can't, if you punish Kansas further, then you're going to run the risk of, well, now this is going to get appealed because you, as the NCAA, has decided this is not how you're going to do this anymore. So Kansas, fell in the right spot for sure, and now they can move on and deal with the other problems they have, like Arterio Morris and all that. So,
I mean, it's not really their problem anymore.
Not anymore, yeah. He's off the team, but
he's enrolled at Garden City Community College based on reports yesterday. So, speaks really well of their program that they would bring him in. But JUCO, I guess that's how it works. But still very puzzling that you'd want him around any program right now, given what's been alleged. But I think it's going to be a fun weekend, and don't really have much to say on the follow-up to that, but looking forward to all the games, and I know we're going to be picking some here in a little while.
Well, we are going to pick them. We'll do that after Off the Radar. Craig has that at about a half an hour. We'll hear from Taylor McCarg here momentarily with his thoughts on Washington, Oregon, among the games. In fact, flashing back to the weekend with a couple of the games we saw. But we will have our games, the ones we have. We're not going to put them up yet, but it is USC Notre Dame, and that's the one that took me the longest. UCLA, Oregon State, Oregon, Washington, Brigham Young, TCU, and then Miami at North Carolina. Those are the games. We'll pick those a little bit later on and also look at the standings of where we are. All right, this is 365 Sports.
The right call can make all the difference on and off the field. I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. When it's time for a new car, truck, or SUV, Bird Colgin Ford is the right call. Come check out our award-winning lineup of best-selling models in their class, like the Mustang, Explorer, Expedition, F-150, and Super Duty. Make the right call for your next vehicle at Bird Colgin Ford. Bird Colgin Ford proudly supports Baylor Athletics. Sic 'em Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
I know this is not college football related, but just a quick note. The Big 12 Conference is now partnering with Allstate, the insurance company, as far as supporting all of the women's sports at an unprecedented level. So sponsoring perhaps some of the championships, among other things, as part of a sponsorship among all the women's sports in the Big 12. And yet, the little, like a little here and a little there, that's not free. Allstate's not getting that for free. They're paying money for that. And I don't know how much it is. It may not be much, but it's scratch, right, Paul? And Craig, it's money that was not there in the first place.
No, keep making money where you can. And, you know, there is maybe I hope the window opens up bigger for women's sports to make more money. But after the NCAA tournament last year, it appears that there is some piqued interest in it. So strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add. It's great. You know, it's an extension of a partnership they were already doing. I don't know how much money they really get from it, but yeah, I mean, whatever you can do to promote your brand, that's cool.
All right, there's Jim on the in the chat room. They're, again, discussing games coming up or fans talking college football. I admit I'm upset because a USC fan called the Notre Dame campus a dump. I think he has a seeing eye dog or is mentally ill. I'll tell you this. I was very lucky. I went up there to women's basketball in a regional when Baylor women played Notre Dame, and it was in the second game they were beating Notre Dame, winning with McGraw, the coach. But it was cold. I had just flown in from what, Paul? Long Beach or whatever it was, because we were covering Baylor, Wisconsin men's basketball in California. Drove most of the night from Chicago. It was dreary. kind of what you would think. It was probably in, early to mid-March. But there is so much historical perspective of that campus that it blows you away. But as far as I couldn't tell you if it's a beautiful campus or not because it was just like almost late winter still there. So I can't answer. But, Jim, thanks for the comment. Someone brought up USC and their lack of defense. Chris Cobb, Lincoln Riley never believes in defense at Oklahoma. Now USC, you can score, but you can't stop anybody. Definitely Lincoln is an average.
They had a little bright spot there at the beginning of the season where you thought, oh, well, hey, the defense looks better. And then it quickly was like, oh, no, it's pretty much what we thought it was going to be. That's problematic. I mean, no doubt about it. I think that's what's so refreshing for Oklahoma is that you're not just winning, but you're winning with defense. Like, that travels. You know that's going to aid you in the SEC, in the rest of this year, in, perhaps a college football playoff berth, not just, this year, like I said, but also moving forward into the following years. I mean, that's the kind of template that can – win you titles. And, Lincoln Riley's teams win a lot of games, and he won a lot of Big 12 championships, but could not get over that hump. And it's like, well, what's the missing piece? Well, it's not the quarterback. It's not the offense. It's the defense. And so, until he changes the narrative, that's going to always be the sticking point and the main criticism with him. And, for the fans who watch his teams, I mean, USC fans, you're just Oklahoma fans, a few years ago was how you feel about what you see. Like, oh, quarterback's awesome. Offense is tremendous. Defense can't, hold water. And so that's just part of what comes with the territory, that's what you signed up for. And so I don't know what the undying loyalty is to Alex Grinch and why it seems like he refuses to budge there. But, something is going to have to give, whether that's him just saying, you know what, I'm going to the NFL, or somebody saying, no, if you're going to stick around here, like, you have to make a change defensively because this is just not working, and it's been proven at two different institutions over a number of years. So we'll see how this season plays out the rest of the way. But it is very Groundhog Day to go wake up and go out to a Lincoln Riley team. Offense is awesome, but the defense isn't very good. Yeah, we've heard that before.
There was a question about the defense earlier this week. His response was on the defense and the perception. A lot of people in the media had their mind made up that the first second there was any adversity this year, it was like, oh my God, they should have done this or they should have done that, have made some changes. That was his response earlier in the week.
Look, that's what he's got to tell himself, then fine.
Exactly.
But the numbers aren't lying, especially the last 2 weeks in particular. If you take what they did jumping out to a huge lead against Colorado and almost blowing that one, and then giving up a huge lead to Arizona to start the game and having to fight back and win that one in double overtime, to be like, well, our defense only gave up 31 after, and some of that was in overtime after the 17 to nothing deficit we fell into. Well, dude, like you got to look at all the numbers at the same time equally. Like you can't just pick and choose what you want. But he was saying it's already, everyone was going to see that as soon as there was any kind of perception.
Yeah. So with USC and with USC. We'll
playing Notre Dame. Yeah.
I think with his comments, it's, I guess there's people who are super critical of the defense and whatever. I'm not, jumping to he has to fire somebody, because we talked about that earlier, like how everybody needs to fire somebody and whatever. I don't think that you necessarily, and it might be different out there. Maybe that's what all the people around LA are saying that actually care about USC. I'm not saying you have to fire Alex Grinch like now at the first sign of adversity, if that's what he's talking about. But I mean, it's been like a common thing now for like multiple years at two different institutions. So if you are sitting there playing with a high-level quarterback and a high-level offense, and the only thing that's preventing you from winning the national title is the defense, well, of course that's where people are going to focus. Absolutely. Of course that's where people are going to look. And when that's the ultimate goal and that's what you're not accomplishing, but you're getting paid to accomplish, then, hey, where do you look to pinpoint the weaknesses? On the defensive side of the football. And it just so happens that that's the same guy who was the cause or somewhat of the cause of those, in years past. So, yeah, that's absolutely where people are going to be focused, and you've got to understand that. But, like I said, let's see how the rest of the way plays out.
All right, so here, Paul, one quick note about you and your trip to Austin. I wish my wife liked football. She won't watch it on TV 24/7, Hallmark Channel. Bobby B, make sure you get down to El Arroyo or Z Tejas, killer margaritas for lunch.
And we might do that. I told her, because she's not experienced Austin really at all. We went down there like one time for like a day trip. So I told her, just make a list of things that you want to do. I'm figuring this marriage thing out. Like I'm chauffeuring and tour guiding and dealing with what will be monstrous traffic. Beijing-like traffic.
Beijing?
Yes. Yeah. The Austin traffic is terrible.
It is. It's like Houston. All right. We'll have Taylor McCarg of ESPN. Craig, anything else on that?
Nope.
But yeah, I was interested. We brought up the couple of the chat comments about USC and the defense, because I saw that quote earlier. I saw the video. I listened to it with Riley and, of course, a lot of different people. There was one USC fan that has a blog that said it pains him that Oklahoma has already surpassed USC in what is the second year under Venables, and they're doing it even though they gave up a lot of yards to Texas with defense as the core of what they're doing. Of course, Dylan Gabriel was huge. We're joined by Taylor McCarg, former Rice quarterback, ESPN, with us on 365 Sports. Taylor, thanks for your time. Let's start with that. Your thoughts about Dylan Gabriel and what he was able to do, and especially that last drive, and then under pressure to throw the touchdown pass.
Yeah, I thought it was his best performance to this point of the season by a mile. And I know we talked last week about, I just had not seen enough from him to have a lot of faith in him at critical points in the game, and especially delivering the ball downfield. I thought SMU, when that game was tight late, that gave me a lot of concern in his ability to create separation in this game against Texas, and that obviously was not the case. Now, on the flip side, I thought Texas played by far their most poor game of the season. The 3 turnovers, really struggled in the red zone again. They outgained Oklahoma, and I think if you play that game again, I think Texas is probably favored. But credit to Oklahoma for making plays when they needed to, and especially for the red zone defense. I thought that was maybe the most impressive piece of that entire game for Oklahoma.
Did your opinion change about Texas at all?
Yeah, maybe slightly, but I still think they're going to be favored the rest of the way in. The Big 12 slate for them is not that challenging. And I think you probably see Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12 championship. And on a neutral site like they just were, is Texas going to be favored? Probably. And again, if Texas wins that game because of Oklahoma's non-conference schedule, I think Texas would be the team that would advance. They'd both be sitting there at 12-1. I think Texas is the team that would advance in the playoffs. But I thought it was really disappointing for Quinn Ewers' performance. Came out of the gate, the turnover early on. I believe it was the first possession. That can't happen. If you're a guy that's, you were talking about him for Heisman contention, you can't throw that ball in that situation and be that late on a simple slant route. And I thought that was disappointing. But a lot of football still ahead of them. They're going to have an opportunity to redeem themselves if they can get through the rest of the conference slate. And again, they're going to be favored. In a lot of these games in the Big 12 schedule, they're going to be favored by 2 scores the rest of the way in.
Taylor, before we start looking ahead, another one from last week that was much publicized and had a very interesting outcome was Alabama and A&M. Your thoughts on what you saw unfold there in College Station?
I thought that came down to coaching as much as anything else. And for Aggie fans that are upset with Jimbo Fisher, I think it's warranted how the second half especially was managed. Jalen Milroe, Alabama has clearly honed in on what he excels at, and they're tailoring the game plan to we're running the football, quarterback run game, and then when they take shot plays, that's a lot of their passing game. They're not asking him to stand in and work through a full progression. It's quick game, it's screens, and then it's throw the ball deep, get it over the top, give your guys a shot on the outside. But again, for A&M, they had, I was going to say, a chance to win that game. They had more than a chance to win that game, and it was really disheartening if you're an A&M fan to see how that game was coached and managed down the stretch.
Oregon and Washington, and what is the highest-rated game of the weekend? Your thoughts about Penix, obviously with Bo Nix, 2 unbeaten teams, highly ranked, and what a game it should be.
Well, how awesome is it that in the last year of the Pac-12, maybe it's awesome, maybe it's sad, that some of the best teams in college football are in the Pac-12, and your top 3 Heisman contenders right now, Bo Nix, Penix, and Caleb Williams at USC are all quarterbacks in the Pac-12. I think this is going to be a fantastic game. You're going to see, for anybody that hasn't watched Washington yet, you're going to see some of the best receivers in college football. I think they have 3 legitimate NFL targets on the outside. Penix is playing fantastic. This is going to be a really fun college football game. And it's also, from an entertainment standpoint, it's going to be great to see College Game Day out there. Pat McAfee's going to have a little bit of a reckoning going through the West Coast. I think the fans will give him their warmest welcome. But this is by far the most intriguing game of the weekend.
Taylor, Miami had the biggest gaffe you could imagine last week. They roll in to play a very good North Carolina team this week. Will the coaching staff be hyper-focused, or will they be maybe overcorrecting for their under-coaching last week?
Yeah, you hope that you can just move past it, but honestly, that's the kind of mistake these are the kind of things that can derail an entire season. And what's also disheartening is, this happened before with Justin Herbert when he was the quarterback at Oregon, and Mario Cristobal had this happen once before at Oregon. And I still have not heard a great answer for why they managed the end of the game the way that they did. It's still beyond me. And you said it exactly right. I mean, it's an all-time mistake. And this will be something that we point back to for years and years on how they failed to close out that game when all they needed to do was take a knee. And you hope that your players in the locker room can respond and rally. But it's hard to do that when this doesn't give you a ton of faith in your coaching staff.
Taylor, your thoughts on just the Pac-12 race in general? Has it cleared up in your mind at all? I mean, Lincoln Riley, we were just talking about him, and let me just ask you about that. He talks about the defense. Do you feel like the defense is rightfully a concern and a talking point, or do you think that people lay it on a little too thick when it comes to Alex Grinch and the deficiencies there?
No, I think in all honesty, it probably deserves more attention than it's getting. I mean, this is a team that on the offensive side of the ball is one of the best in college football, but on the defensive side, they are in the bottom tier in terms of scheme in all of the Power Five. And Arizona is a much improved team, but the mistakes that defense makes week in and week out, these are schematic issues. You have guys that their eyes are not in the wrong spot. They're not being coached well, and they don't get after the quarterback. And at that level, when you're talking about competing for a Pac-12 championship and getting to the Final Four, they're not in the same tier with Oregon, Washington. I think in certain circumstances, I would take Washington State over them because Washington State will be able to score for the most part on anybody. And then for Utah, it just depends on where you're playing them. If you have to play them at Utah, you're probably not winning that game. But, the Pac-12 has been, in my opinion, maybe the best storyline of the season just because there's so much talent in that conference, especially at the top. And you just hope that they don't cannibalize themselves and end up missing the playoff like they typically do. But this is going to be a really entertaining back half of the season following that conference.
Taylor, you had the game earlier, right? Louisiana Tech, Middle Tennessee State. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, we did. We had a Tuesday night game. It was good to see Middle Tennessee put a 4-quarter performance together. Look, I'm a fan of the midweek games. We had different reactions. Sonny Cumbie talked about how their players seem to enjoy being on the national television stage. Middle Tennessee was kind of the other direction. They were like, it's hard on our kids. We played 4 games in 18 days. So I think it depends on. Some schools have handled it a little bit better. Middle Tennessee's had the injury bug, but I certainly enjoyed having the midweek game. You're kind of on a standalone stage, and now we've got Navy and Charlotte on Saturday, so back to some American action.
Taylor, thank you. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the broadcast. We appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Taylor McCarg, former Rice quarterback, college football analyst, did a game Tuesday night, does one again coming up this weekend. What a great job. What a great job. When we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar around the corner. This is 365 Sports, our college football picks at just after 5:10.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for great customer service, great pricing, and just a great time getting your car fixed up or just getting something as simple as an oil change. And right now, the construction outside of the dealership and all along Highway 6 is it's a bit of a hassle. It's a bit dug up right now, but they want to make it worth your while getting on over to the dealership. And right now, you can save Over $7,000 on new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s, and qualified buyers can finance for 0.9%. They've got dozens of Sierras on the lot. They've got inventory, the price, and the financing to get you into a new GMC Sierra today. And if you're a military or first responder, you can save an additional $500. That also goes with the Buick lineups if you're eyeing those. They've got the perfect combo of first-class luxury and value like no other. Ranked #1 overall brand for new vehicle quality by J.D. Powers. Buick offers amazing value, and right now you can save $5,000 on a new full-size 2023 Buick Enclave, or save $4,000 on a 2023 midsize Buick Envision. And again, $500 off for military and first responders. So those are some of their new offerings. They've also got a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well, and their financing goal is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no, but if you're not in the market for a new vehicle, you're just looking to get your car fixed up, or, like I said, get something as simple as an oil change, where their award-winning service department is standing by to keep you on the road. And right now, they cannot be beat on tires. They are offering a price match guarantee on the lowest price comparable tires in town. So service your car or truck, again, with the people that you can count on at Richard Car. And people have been able to count on them for over 24 years here in the Central Texas area. All during that time, 2 decades plus, they built a reputation as the ones to go to for your automotive needs. So, go check out the dealership, whether online or in person or over the phone. A dealership run by proud Central Texans and proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call them now. Go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. It's a Thursday at around 4:45, so time to stop down and take a look at a batch of headlines that we might otherwise not get to during the course of this show, which leans so heavily towards college athletics. But I will sprinkle in college athletics from time to time as it warrants. And I think a little bit of a mention here, especially for the realignment junkies. But no, everything is something until it's not, right? When it comes to specifically talking about board meetings and things like that. So I just thought I'd pass this along because this is just from a few minutes ago. But Bob Thompson had put this out, and now I guess a couple of reporters as well up from the Northwest area. I'm not big, Greg Woods from the Spokesman Review, one of those. I'm not big on the whole, every time there's a meeting call, let's watch this one. But if Bob Thompson's making note of it, then I think it's worth mentioning. So there's all this stuff going on, obviously, with Washington State and Oregon State. They're in mediation. There was the report today by John Wilner about, the fact that USC and UCLA might have set precedent, and that's part of the big argument of these other schools leaving and what that means as far as what Oregon State and Washington State would be able to claim ownership of when it comes to Pac-12 assets. But that was quickly followed up by the fact that there was more money missing than originally thought from their pool. Now that's all for further deeper conversation. Like I've seen some of the side talk about that, and I'm not a legal guy, so maybe that's already been taken into account. I'm not sure, but point being that Comcast, that whole deal was even worse than we originally thought, by like millions of dollars worse than we thought. So we'll see how that all gets taken care of. But point being that now, so it's been a very busy day in that regard, but now Greg Woods, among others, Bob Thompson reporting that, or Bob Thompson not reporting, but passing along that the Washington State Board of Regents are holding a meeting tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. That will be broadcast on YouTube. So that is being sent out because legally they have to do that to make notice of that public meeting or have the public comment period and all of that. So you will be able to watch that. I'm not saying it's going to mean anything or result in anything, but like I said, it is notable with all that's swirling on right now that there could be something of interest that does come from that. So if you're into, watching the board meetings and you feel like there's something here, well, then tomorrow at 10:15, I would assume that's West Coast time, there will be a public meeting for Washington State on YouTube with their chair of the Board of Regents and company, or the whole Board of Regents getting together. So.
Doesn't it bring back memories of all the board meetings that they kept having? It almost gave me the EBGBs when you said yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why I first saw it and I was like, I don't know. But I mean, all the news today and then that, I can understand why you're trying to put two and two together. And who the heck knows at this point? I mean, who the heck knows? So
yeah. Especially Smokey, that's like one of your claustrophobia and meetings are like two things.
No, I don't like. Claustrophobia is way up here.
Yeah.
Meetings would be.
Are they like with
next in
snakes?
Like snakes, yes.
Would you rather? Okay, I could get those rattlesnake guys in here again.
Snakes and needles.
Would you rather?
Snakes leads.
Would you rather get snakes in the room on the show again, the rattlesnake guys, or sit through a meeting about conference decisions?
Meeting.
Okay.
Meaning snakes are always snakes and claustrophobia are my two biggest fears.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, that'll be tomorrow. So for those that are interested in those types of things, maybe something, maybe nothing. Determine for yourself. I'll just catch up on the news after the fact personally, but there is that out there. So wanted to mention that because that is a little bit off of the radar. Meanwhile, a lot of the news today is not really news in terms of headlines and things like that. It's really just the games that are being played out there. So, for example, there is some baseball tonight, but first things first, we didn't talk at all about the Rangers going to the freaking ALCS yesterday. Not even a single mention of it.
We were not trying to be homers, but I'm glad you're jumping into that.
Yeah, so the Rangers clinched their spot in the ALCS 2 nights ago. Big deal for that franchise. And then last night, the Astros clinched the other half of the ALCS bracket. So the American League Championship Series is set. It will be a Lone Star Showdown. Rangers, Astros, and I've already seen quite a few people make mention that this will be the most toxic championship series imaginable. And I tend to agree based on what I've seen on social media throughout the year, especially with the Rangers being good. That has, definitely spiced things up. But we'll have, game number 1 coming up here this weekend. But what are y'all's thoughts on Rangers, Astros in the American League Championship Series?
If, in fact, John Gray and Max Scherzer are back, I think this one is one that it's looking like a 6-7 gamer. I mean, because I do think that there'll be some back and forth. The Astros are so good in the postseason. Although, neither team, the reason the Rangers and Astros are both so good, and the Rangers lineup, I think that maybe player for player, if you had to just holistically, you would take it. 1 to 9 is a little bit better because there's no Martin Maldonado in it. But both the lineups are really good. The pitching staffs are really good. The Astros have a better bullpen, which might be the difference in the series. But if the pitching staff is to as full health as it's been in a long time, with Scherzer and Gray available and then able to push someone like Dane Dunning into long relief and spot duty, then I think that helps the bullpen a lot. I think this one's going the distance.
Well, the Astros have a closer.
Yeah.
The Rangers, Leclerc has pitched well, but he's not a guy that's going to blow people away. And then Chapman, of course, is like, Jesus, you never know. I mean, God, 7-1 lead against Baltimore, and you're wondering after he loads the bases, are they going to be able to hold on? And that was in the 8th inning.
They got out of it, though.
Yeah, they did. They did. And,
but I know what you're saying.
Man, he makes me nervous. I'm trying to get, here's a stat.
No lead is safe. That's for sure with Aroldis Chapman and just their bullpen.
No.
Yeah.
Here's a stat. And stop me, Craig, if I am about to say something. I had this because I knew you'd probably talk Rangers and Astros. In the last 7 years, the Astros have a 79-39 record against the Rangers. The 7 years prior to that, the Rangers had a 67-27 record against Houston. You add those games up, and they're 106-106 in the last 14 years against each other.
That's pretty incredible.
With the Astros having a huge advantage lately.
Yeah, I mean, especially lately, they've definitely caught up. This year, they're 9-4 against the Rangers. So if you believe the previous games will play into this, then you would lean Astros based on the fact they doubled them up. 9-4 throughout the regular season. We do know it'll be Justin Verlander on the mound for the Rangers starting things off, for the Astros starting things off. Rangers have not announced their starting pitcher for game number 1 as of yet, but yeah, that's coming up this weekend, so very much looking forward to it. At the same time, as a Rangers fan, very nervous about just the whole thing, and certainly, respectful of the Astros and what they've done. 7 straight championship series they've now been to.
That's incredible. You can say whatever you want. You can discuss whatever you want. You can bring up whatever you want. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Yeah. And if the Rangers want to win and get to the World Series, if you want to beat the team that has been your worst problem, the team in your own division, the team that has World Series titles, and that's Houston. And you remember Aroldis Chapman started out pretty good with the Rangers, and then I think it was McCormick or Tucker that hit one about 800 feet. And from that point on, his cape was off. And they ended up blowing out the Rangers in the last series they played too.
Well, I mean, the Astros' history with Chapman goes back to the Yankees and that as well. So, yeah, they're not fearful of him in any way. And I don't know anybody that really is at this point. But that'll be a hell of a series. It's going to start Sunday night. 7:15 first pitch down in H-Town at Minute Maid Park. I did think about this. How much do you think the new ballpark played into all this? I mean, I'm not giving that's not why they have Josh Young and all that, but the way they've been able to play, especially late, would they be doing that if it was the ballpark in Arlington and they had been playing at 107 degrees during weekdays?
Particularly this summer, maybe not.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes that's a summer to summer thing because there have been great Rangers teams that, withstood the heat in that ballpark because they were built well, but also maybe they didn't have a summer like this El Nino heat dome bull crap that we just went through.
Brutal.
And
is that in the dictionary, El Nino heat dome bull crap?
It should be now, but it was, when you're talking about 110 degrees, and then when it's 110 degrees, it's 117 on the field and stadiums because the sun's just beating down. It's still 95 degrees at night, so you don't Yeah, you don't even have to like that break of like, well, when the sun goes down, this will be 20 degrees cooler. Well,
when we
20
walk
degrees
out of
cooler
the
is still
stu-
95.
When we were walking out of the studio, day after day, week after week, month after month, you would walk out that studio and it's 6:15 and it would just beat you up.
Yeah, so... No, I think that the new stadium certainly played an advantage for them this year because this particular summer was excessively brutal.
Yeah, so I was wondering about that, with the Astros having had Minute Maid Park for so long, and it's like the Rangers get this ballpark, and 2 years in, they're already, this deep, and I just was thinking, it's definitely the talent they have. Like, that's the biggest reason why is their lineup and their starting rotation, all that, but... I do think that especially this, it absolutely aided them in being able to get to this point.
I mean, you can look at some like NFL things too, though. Like, I'll just use the Cowboys as an example. How many times have the Cowboys maybe been stumbled up because their trips over the East Coast were in November and December, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So Rangers-Astros coming up on Sunday.
I have one more stat on the Rangers and Astros.
Got other stuff. So
the last time they played was in early September. And the Rangers were outscored 39-10 in that series.
Oh, that's nothing.
No, I don't. That was not the same Rangers team we've been watching.
No,
here
that was
lately.
when they were struggling.
Yeah,
and
they were not
then
very
they
good.
bounced back and got back in the lead.
Yeah,
but they got humiliated by Houston. You hope that is something that they remember. I'm sure they do.
I'm sure they do. We want Houston was all the rage and chants the other night at the ballpark, and so I think that they're very well aware, and I think that that's what they wanted. That's what the fans wanted. That's what Houston wanted. So you're going to get it, Lone Star Showdown, or whatever the name they come up with to market it will be. But that will be toxic and yet fascinating. And very well could be an all-time classic between these two. We'll see. On the other side of the bracket, the Diamondbacks advanced with a sweep of the Dodgers, and the Dodgers, the number 2 seed in the National League. You got the number 1 seed that's hanging in the balance right now with the Atlanta Braves that I'll get to in a moment, but Diamondbacks do advance, so 3 of the 4 now set up and awaiting who the Diamondbacks will be playing. As of right now, the Phillies lead that series over in the NLDS against the Braves 2-1, and we'll get game number 4 coming up on TBS later on tonight as the Phillies lead that series 2-1, as I mentioned, and Bryce Harper with a couple of dingers after a little bit of drama and locker room talk and all of that with the Braves. So he made a statement last night. That'll be a first pitch just after 7, as I said, on TBS. So any thoughts on the National League, the way that's shaken out with the D-backs now meeting what could be the Phillies as soon as tonight?
Stunned.
Yeah, I'm a little stunned. Like, the Dodgers doesn't surprise me as much that they struggled, because outside of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, their lineup's really not that good.
And they were both awful in this series. They were terrible.
So,
did you not give Max Muncy any credit?
I mean, he hit 195 this year. So, like,
I'm telling him.
I mean, he has some home runs, but he's not on base a lot. The Braves surprises me right now that they're trailing in the series, is because their lineup is fantastic. Their pitching's been really good all year, but of course it's been backed by 7 billion home runs that they hit, and so when you don't hit those home runs, then the pitching's not maybe as tough. And the Phillies, Bryce Harper is the emotional center of that team, and they've got dogs like Kyle Schwarber, who I know is, he's like one of those guys like Max Muncy. It's either going out of the park or it's not anything. But playoff-wise, you want Schwarbs on your team. I mean, and
absolutely.
So they are. That's an old school Mike Schmidt or Darren Dalton type Philadelphia Phillies team, and Bryce Harper. I can't imagine. Like, I know there are people, especially in Atlanta, who hate his guts. But again, one of the best parts of baseball right now is a guy like Bryce Harper.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was fun watching him last night, the stare down and getting his little measure of talking S, huh? Well, this is what happens. So yeah, that was cool. And now, like I said, game 4 later on tonight, so we could have the Final Four all set up.
I would read this, but Kim Coulter sent me a text message that may be as big as a thick Bible. About his history of watching the Rangers when he was 14 years old when they moved to Arlington, and then he moved to Phoenix, and of course Arizona eventually was there, and so he's kind of torn on that, the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, if in fact they were to meet.
Yeah, a long way away from that, but maybe we do get there here in the next few days or in a little over a week's time. We will see as that all starts to get underway here later on this weekend. Elsewhere tonight, couple college football games on the tube as you've got SMU and ECU. 6:30 kickoff on ESPN. The Mustangs 3-2, the Pirates 1-4. So there's a little action for you out there at East Carolina. But of course, the game that we're most interested in because of the implications in the Big 12 and just the questions about like West Virginia, can they keep this going? Houston, how bad are they? And then the whole Holgorsen thing of just who's going to have the bragging rights. West Virginia at Houston, 6 p.m. That'll kick off here in a little over an hour on FS1. West Virginia 4-1, favored here. Houston, meanwhile, 2-3. If they were to win this game and win a game at home, and I'm sure Holgorsen would be over the moon being able to beat West Virginia, but they'd all of a sudden be at 500, and I still don't think that they're very good. But hey, if they're 500 through 6 games, I would consider that a win for Houston. So very interesting result coming up later on tonight, but I definitely lean Mountaineers. You just never know, though, on these Thursday night games. And, it's going to be fun to see how that one shakes out. Do y'all have a prediction of any sort as far as West Virginia, Houston goes?
I'll take West Virginia.
Yeah, I think it's the easy choice. Yeah,
they're gritty, man. I like they find a way to win. It's not always pretty, but they win, and they're winning. And it's a road trip. It's in the middle of the week, a short week, but I really do like how they're playing.
Well, they came off bye, so
yeah.
So they had a long week.
Yeah, they had a long week.
Still a short week.
Both of them did. Both of them did. So, yeah, there you go. So West Virginia, Houston later on tonight. And then close it out with this, the Amazon Prime Thursday night game. Broncos at the Chiefs. Kicks off at 7:15 on Prime. The Broncos 1-4. The Chiefs 4-1. So not sure how much entertainment we're really in for tonight with this game and how competitive it will be, but it is a heated rivalry. It is a divisional game, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs, so they're going to get eyeballs regardless. But, yeah, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and however else you want to break this down. But the Broncos have been struggling.
They've been bad.
And the Chiefs have been, pretty good as usual. So that's later on tonight, Broncos-Chiefs.
Jack, did you get I'm not sure if you got the email. I sent it to Garrett's about baseball's teams who are left. Okay. All right, Craig, you want to read this? This is something I peeled out very late.
Just go ahead.
All right, so the Braves won 104 games, right? Mm-hmm. And they trail now 2-1. Baltimore won 101 games. They're done. L.A. won 100 games. They're done. Tampa Bay won 99 games. They're done. Milwaukee won the next best, 92. They're done. Houston and Texas won 90. They're alive. Philadelphia won 90. They're alive. And Arizona won 84, and they're alive. The 4 lowest seeds are at least 3 have moved on, and one of them is waiting if they can win one more game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that means. I think the AL East surprises me a little bit because that was a really tough division all year long. I mean, their 2 bottom teams would have won the AL Central. So, it was weird that's how that shook out. But Texas came in ready to go and took out the AL East, and then
they barely made the playoffs.
Yeah,
when all said and done,
they flew from Seattle straight over the state of Texas to Tampa.
Yeah.
And then went up to Baltimore, right?
Yeah. So they just came in apparently, locked and loaded, and the Astros were better than the Twins no matter what. And then you've put that team in the postseason setting, and they already know. They have a default setting for the postseason.
Yeah, it's amazing that no one from the American League East, with Baltimore out, Toronto obviously got knocked out late. Tampa Bay got knocked out immediately. All right, when we come back, that was Craig's Off the Radar. Thank you very much. And our college football picks, 5 games, 5 good ones. We don't put anything in there that's ugly or 40-point favorites. It's hard, and we'll give you the standings, and we'll give you our absolute picks. That's next on 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock, the owner of 5 locations in Waco, the fastest growing pizza company and brand in America. And 5 of them here in Waco, in the Waco area. 2 in Woodway, Hewitt, just south of town. Robinson, Bellmead, and China Spring. Marco's Pizza, Pizza lovers get it. Go online. You can get all sorts of discounts. You can find your favorite pizza. You can build the one you want and find a way with a code to get something taken off of that as far as the total price. They have sandwiches and salads, and they have wings, and they have drinks, and they have all of that too, but they have great pizza. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in Waco. Thanks to Bob Mock. Pizza lovers get it.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Samantha Duvall, Marketing Director for TexasBeefHouse.com. You know all about their great Wagyu beef and product they have. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com for anything you want to order. But, Samantha, thanks for your time. There's an auction coming up in the month of November. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so November 11th, we're having our first public beef auction. It's going to be here at our ranch in White House, Texas. It's going to be a live auction. You can bid in person, you can bid on the phone, or we'll also have it online. And we're auctioning off Wagyu and Angus beef. We'll have 30 to 40 pound bundles. They'll be full of steaks, hamburger, and primals. This is perfect for not only the restaurant owners, but also homeowners.
So if somebody wants to load up your deep freezer with some great product from a place that is just delivering all of the time, with Wagyu from their ranch to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, shop our great selection of brand new Ram trucks designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Come by and see our large selection today or browse online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, I was going to put this in the chat room. I'm going to just say it on the air. We're about to make 5 picks, 5 different games, all of them really difficult, the way it should be. It's not against the spread. It's straight up winning, and it's still difficult. When I mention a game that Paul and Craig and I will then predict, you fire away who you would pick. And again, it's going to be quick. We got a little time here. If I, for example, was to say whatever, like who, and it's not one of the games, you go boom, 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 boom. You tell us who you would pick, and I'll just kind of read them off as we possibly can. Now, Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Here are the standings so far through this weekend's games. At the top continues to be the young man who puts the picks in, Emery.
Yeah, he's doing well. He's 16-14.
Craig has come back from the depths to tie Pablo at 15-15.
I was 1-4 last week.
Good.
So
it's the way it should be.
Yeah, I was
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I was, I think, 2-3 last week. But no, I mean, given how the first week started, especially, I'm proud to be at 500 at this point, and especially given that, like, I see a lot of other picks, and people ask, like, we'll do the spread when we get a gambling sponsor. How about that? Like, we'll pick games with a spread when we have a reason to pick games with the spread, because I'm not going to pretend to be some expert when it comes to that. But there's no, like, hey, let's throw Texas versus Houston on here and get an automatic win or, things like that. Like, we try to pick the 5 most difficult games to pick pretty much every week. And the way the season is gone and the way college football is, you got to be pretty special to have like a super, 80% winning record or something like that.
4-1, man. You jump quickly.
It's tough.
All right. Jack McKenzie, by the way, we have royalty today producing our show, directing our show. I am right there. I think I was 3-2. I think I just kind of held my own. And then Garrett's going to get fired.
Yeah,
he's done.
He's just been in it.
One of the reasons he's not here, part of his suspension. Level 1 violations.
Yeah.
Now making me nervous that I've got almost all the same picks as him. No, but I mean, look, like I said, it's a toss-up every week here.
Yeah. All right, go to the chat. We're going to go to the chat room. The first game is the USC Notre Dame game. There could be bad weather. We'll read off the first 5 of you who give us a pick on the chat room. But we'll start with us. Paul, you're taking USC.
Yeah, I'm taking USC because of Caleb Williams. You know how much of a Sam Hartman fan I am. I do think that Notre Dame will muddy this one up, and they will attack USC physically in a way that they probably have not seen before, especially in South Bend. That's what these Marcus Freeman teams do. I just think I think Caleb Williams will be too much. I know that USC's playing with fire. I think they continue to do that, but they don't get burned yet until they jump back into the Pac-12, and then I think that's where their problems will really start.
Craig, you took Notre Dame.
Yeah, I did. I think, the weather could potentially play into this. I definitely think that that's a potential factor. That's something that's going to be fascinating, too, with the Pac schools when they start to – and I know it's not like sunshine and rainbows up in Oregon and Washington all the time by any means. Like, they're not, oblivious to the cold and rain and snow and all that stuff, but it is a little bit of a different animal. So, I don't know. I think that could come into play. And, I think Notre Dame having lost – I just think that there's a little extra gear there potentially to bounce back and have a big performance. And just a showdown of 2 stud quarterbacks, I just slightly lean the Irish here, getting a little bit of a rebound. And I don't like the way that USC's been playing with fire. I just think that they've, been able to kind of get by despite their defensive efficiencies. And I think that Notre Dame could possibly bring that to an end.
All right, I took Notre Dame. There'll be 80,000 or so. I think capacity is just over 77,000. It's natural grass, so it could get a little bit somewhat slippery, but could get muddy, kind of old school. I'm old school, and so I take Notre Dame. And USC's weapons. And what's the young man who's the lightning fast? He doesn't get a lot of touches. Malachi something.
Well, Zachariah Branch?
Yeah, he's a little bit – he might be in and out.
Zachariah Branch.
Malachi's the backup quarterback.
There's an eye in there.
Yeah.
By the way, Paxton took Notre Dame. Bob took Notre Dame. Wet Blanket, Notre Dame. Kim, touchdown, Jesus. Camelo, Notre Dame because of better defense. Altoid takes USC. And then also John Joe took Notre Dame in that pick. All right. So we also have the rest of the picks, including Garrett, USC, and Emory takes Notre Dame. Next game, Paul, on an island with UCLA at Oregon State. We're all taking the Beavers, and you are taking Chip Kelly and the Bruins.
Yeah, I'm betting on Dante Moore in the offense to have a good enough game. UCLA's defense has been really good. DJU's been good, but not great for Oregon State. He started to maybe pick it up a little bit, but I'm taking UCLA in this one. I picked against them a couple times. One I was right and one I was wrong. Yep. So we'll see. I mean, if it's every other one, then great. If not, then I don't have a read on UCLA.
Craig?
I think most of these Pac games are flip games, honestly, and this is one of those. And I think I was kind of on UCLA a little bit before in some of the picks that we did. Didn't get the first one right. Definitely got this latest one right that we had with them beating, what was it, Washington State, I believe it was last week. And I like, the young quarterback, but he's had his moments where it's been a little bit shaky. Now, I know DJU hasn't been perfect either, but I think they're just a little bit sturdier there on that side of the football. But that leads you to the matchup that everybody talks about when breaking down this game, which is UCLA's terrific defense versus Oregon State's offense. And can DJU play a clean game, or can the Bruins bring enough pressure and force him to make some mistakes and throwing some interceptions? I don't know, but I just like Oregon State at home and as a total package more than I like just UCLA's defense and some of their growing pains at this point. So, this was not a quick decision. I just slightly lean the Beavers here.
I took Oregon State home, and UCLA's defense, it can travel. Most everybody rattled off. Paxton, Katie, UW, Altoid, Nahomi, Mansa, also all picked UCLA.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, and then Kim give me the Beavers. Kim Coulter. Wet blanket, give me Oregon State. James Skaggs gave us a score. James, thank you. Beavers 38-34. So there you are. And Bob Kramer takes Oregon State to win that game.
I think, again, we were talking about earlier, you could pick any team in any of these matchups, and you have an argument. This isn't, like I said earlier, Kansas of old versus, top-tier TCU.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all flip-em games, I think, for the most part. Yeah, every one of these is pretty much a flip-em game. So, yeah, UCLA, I could definitely see the love there, and we'll see if Paul going out on his own is not the right choice here.
By the way, Kim Coulter, I'll take Oregon State. I like them at home. Besides, I feel bad for them, so I'm liking them every game. Yeah.
Pity pick, yes.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm out on an island again for the next one here. Everybody's picking the home team, Washington. They're 3-point favorites. Oregon, I just think their defense is a little bit better. And I think that's going to be where it kind of flips this. I went back, and I'm still going back and forth on it, but I just think Oregon's defense is a little bit better, even though Softy made a great point. Neither of them have played anybody to each other's caliber yet. So it's going to be tough to see. And Oregon, while they did a number on that offense at Colorado who can make some big plays, they haven't seen Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze yet. So, we'll see. I just think that's the swing point in this game, but that may be thrown out the window in that the game could be, with an over-under of 66, it could hit in the 70s, combined easily.
I looked at the weather. It's going to be fine. There's a chance it might sprinkle, but I doubt it. I love this. This is one of the most beautiful settings of a stadium in America. Craig, you took Washington along with all the rest of us.
Yeah, I don't think the weather really matches. I mean, they're from the same place, basically. So I think they're both used to that.
The
but the setting of it should be spectacular. Yeah, I mean, again, this is a coin flip game. Didn't try to overthink this. I think Oregon might actually be the better all-around team, and not just because the numbers say that, but I think they might be. Their defense is better. Their offense is as good or better potentially. But I don't know. I tend to sometimes, when in doubt, lean towards the home teams. And I just think this is going to be a terrific game, and you have to pick somebody. So I went with the hometown dogs here, and give just the benefit of the doubt to Michael Penix that he's going to be able to make a few plays and push them over the top in a potential classic.
I just think this is going to be great. I'm going to have myself the sausage queso rotel dip going with a bunch of chips to watch this one on TV. I take Washington, so does Garrett, so does Emery. On the board, the homie says Oregon, Paxton, Oregon in overtime, John Joe, Oregon State and Oregon, Camelo, Washington, Michael Penix at home field.
Yeah.
Husky Stadium will be rocking. Altoid, Michael Penix will show out Washington in a close one. Kim said the Ducks. Kyle said Washington. Katie said Washington. Mansa said Oregon. Wet blanket, Washington. And also Mansa said Oregon by 1. Or close one. Go ahead. Tip. Next game. Big 12 game. Brigham Young, TCU.
I know it's
BYU, TCU.
Am I going out on a limb here to think that TCU is in a free fall?
No, you're not.
And that's why I picked this. I don't know how good BYU really is compared to TCU, but they're going to be playing with their backup quarterback. Yes, they're going to be at home, but they are off. They are off. And I don't know. I think BYU might get them here. TCU has better talent, I think, but it's not come together these last couple weeks. And last week was just a rough game for them. And I don't know how they rebound from that.
Well, I mean, you lost your starting quarterback and you threw a bunch of picks. I don't know that BYU's defense is Iowa State's. I think that there's certainly a lot of concern when you got Josh Hoover now as compared to having Chandler Morris, but Chandler Morris wasn't all that great either. I mean, necessarily. He is better than Josh Hoover, but I do worry about the turnovers here, potentially for TCU and how that could hinder the offense. But they've lost a couple of games. It's certainly possible they could lose a third. I just got to feel like they're going to rally the troops, and I feel like they should be a bit better than BYU at this point. There is still that acclimation process, and BYU might be blowing through that easier than the other three are. But I just think that top to bottom, TCU is a slightly better team, despite dropping a couple games, because there's nothing on BYU's side of things that makes me think, oh, well, they're a clear favorite in that regard. Like, I think TCU's defense can match what BYU's defense does, and I don't think BYU's offense is all that great. So I feel like you're kind of just, again, it's a coin flip, sort of splitting hairs here. So I'll default to the team that's been around a little bit longer and done it more, and the team that's also at home and desperately needs a win here. But I can definitely understand the BYU pick here for both Paul and Emery.
Garrett also took TCU. I took TCU, and Emery took BYU. That's BYU along with Paul. From the chat room, Katie said TC who? Camelo, BYU with the upset. Kim goes, we're all over the board. Scott, thank you. Cherubino says TCU, and Paxton says BYU big, TCU defense is bad.
I don't think TCU's defense is bad. I don't think BYU's offense is that good either. But, I mean, that's certainly, a take that we can revisit, on both sides whenever this game ends. But, for BYU to be at potentially 5-1 and a win in Fort Worth would be massive for them, with their only loss being against Kansas on the road. So, they've been able to string together a nice start, and this would certainly be a huge win for them. But, yeah, I'm still going with TCU. I did hesitate, though, because of the Chandler Morris. Like, if Chandler Morris played, Paul, are you still picking BYU?
No, absolutely not.
So
absolutely not.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. First start for the backup quarterback. They're teetering on the brink here of not coming together. And And the other problem with picking these teams in the Big 12 is where it's tougher in the Pac-12 because these teams are really good. It's just slightly less tough in the Big 12 because you got this big block in the middle of blah.
Yeah, it's Texas, Oklahoma, and then just whatever.
Yeah, and so you don't know, there's not much.
Everybody's had a bad game.
There's not much separation in the middle of it, and so. I'm going with momentum on this one right here.
Okay.
TCU has a lot of negative momentum going, and if they do get it back, fine.
Hey,
but
you know what? Brigham Young will bring a bunch of fans to that game. We saw what they did here in Waco 2 years ago. TCU does not usually have a great crowd. They could end up with a chunk of people there.
Then TCU is, like Baylor, can fall victim to that. Of all of a sudden you turn around and go, oh, crap, this is not the home field advantage you thought it was.
Kim, Wet, Blanket, Derek, Vesnica, all take BYU. So homie says that as well. I keep on getting his name wrong. NH or Nomahe. I'd like to tell me how to.
Namahe, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Also, Matthew says TCU.
If TCU doesn't win, I brought up BYU and what a great start that would be for them. I mean, they'd be one game from bowl eligibility. They'd have gone and taken a huge game that prior to the season you were probably a little bit uncertain about. We didn't realize TCU was not going to be nearly as good as they were last year. I mean, some thought that would be the case, but I don't know if you had them at 500 and potentially below 500 at the halfway point, which is what they would be. And so, the story is not only if BYU wins, how big of a jump this is for them into the Big 12 pool, but for TCU, it'd be awfully puzzling how you dropped, even with all you lost. To be 3-4 would be a disastrous start for them.
Their offense and defensive lines aren't producing. Sonny Dykes made a comment. A couple other comments in the game. Altoid, I'm rooting for BYU, but TCU gets it done. James, TCU needs this one, a must-win in my opinion for the Frogs. Backup quarterback needs to take care of the football, making it bowling shoe ugly. Win a game in the 20s.
Yeah, and I think he showed some of this last year, and this is not a knock on him per se. It's not like a personal shot or anything, but when Sonny Dykes was going on that run last year, it brought up and evoked memories of when Baylor was going through their coaching search and how he was brought up on a couple of occasions. And at the time, the first time around, he was at Cal, and there was no reason to believe this would be a great hire, even though the Texas ties and all that. And obviously, a few years later, SMU and then TCU and what he's built on, that would be a different conversation now as opposed to when he was at Cal. But when you watch him on the sidelines and you watch some of his reactions to certain things, it's okay, I'm glad that they kind of didn't do. I mean, I don't see how it would have fit in very well. Yeah,
he gets fired up. He's the opposite, and he's got a little of that anger, that red face. I like the guy. He's been great with. He's joined us on the show, and always appreciated his take.
I can just see where he wasn't just the natural fit, and just you slide him on in here, and that was the go-to for Mack Rhodes.
So the genius in 2021 was Aranda. The genius in 22 was Kleiman and Sonny Dykes. And all of them right now are kind of looking around going, this year. Miami and North Carolina. Miami coming off the absolute dreadful finish. Mario Cristobal with the decision. It cost him an actual game. An actual game against Georgia Tech. And they're Emory is the only one picked to you. Everybody has powder blue.
Yeah, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that Mario Cristobal coaches his opus on Saturday night because he has to. But North Carolina is really good. It's there, and maybe Miami got caught looking ahead as a team overall. Like, look, they were the reason that Georgia Tech, a team that should not be on the board with Miami, was even in that game because Miami wasn't playing well, and they were coaching circles around Mario Cristobal and staff all game long. But Miami's talent was winning out, and all they had to do was take a knee and win that game. I just think Drake May a little bit too much, especially with Tez Walker coming in for the second game here at home. Yeah, I'll take North Carolina in this one, but I would not be surprised to see Miami really locked in. Now, I do worry, though, that the opposite could happen. Well, not that they're not locked in, but that they're too over-focused and that they overcoach to make up for undercoaching.
This one I probably thought the longest about because I do think that we get lost in the bad decision and don't realize Miami was that bad decision away from being undefeated.
That's true.
And so it's not like they're a bad team. It's just they had a really bad situation unfold last Saturday night, an embarrassing situation. I think that fuels them, and that gave me even more reason to initially pick Miami, but ultimately sat on it a little bit. And, yeah, I'll default to Drake May and North Carolina at home. I think this ought to be an excellent, evenly matched game. A blowout would surprise me either way. But I do think Miami, I expect them at least. I expect them to rebound nicely and make this a heck of a game. But, it's going to be interesting there in the ACC.
We're on the air, man. Thank you very much.
What is going on today?
I don't know.
Man?
Well, Jack was getting arrested, the police officer. Jack, what was that? Do you know what was the deal? Was it looking for somebody else? Because it started making me nervous that Paul and Craig were
they looking for some short dude in all black? I think he just showed up.
We probably don't explain that enough. We have this first floor. We're the only business in this building. Everything else is a condo, apartment, whatever you want, a residence. And we're the only, and we have something on the door. And yet sometimes people just walk in the door.
And I will tell you, there's a phenomenon. Thank you. That's a great shot there, Jack.
That guy made me nervous.
Yeah, he made me very nervous. Here's the other thing. I'll tell you this, and you may not know this, but for some reason to some people, this is a medical condition that we need to get examined, that when they see people with headphones and a microphone on, it doesn't appear to them. It's like we're just sitting here. Who sits all in a row and looks straight away?
With headsets,
what do you think's going on when you come in here?
That's if they pass can they read the sign in front of them?
Yeah,
it's because we have signs on the doors.
That guy made me nervous, so Jack, start bringing your gun. All right, I picked North Carolina. I just like who they are. Drake May, I think he'll be fine. I do think this will be a great game. Like Craig has said, every one of these games, everybody could pick the opposite and end up having the same record in one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, the Tar Heels are averaging like 40 points a game, and I think their defense has gotten better. So, yeah, I mean, it's a coin flip every single one of these, and so we'll see how it comes out in the wash. Probably about even based on the results we've seen so far. But, looking forward to – I'll watch a bunch of, if not all 5 of these games. Can't wait.
All right, Craig, Nomahe. He's given me how to pronounce it. How did you say it was?
Nomahe?
Namahe.
Yeah, Namahe. Okay.
Thank you, Namahe. We appreciate that. I'll try to remember that. For those who are picking the North Carolina-Miami game, Camelo, UNC Miami players will not play well for Cristobal after the last week's debacle.
Their response will be very interesting for sure. I mean, because that was just so disastrous, and I could see it swinging wildly both ways. Yeah.
Paxton, North Carolina, but close, toughest game on the board. Namahe, North Carolina. UW fan Jim, North Carolina. There's a Mac Brown comment in here as well on what Mac Brown and UNC demonstrate how to kneel to win. North Carolina 34, Miami 31 in a classic. Kyle, Wet, everybody's picking North Carolina. But James Skagg, he said he'll take North Carolina, wins by 10. All right, there you go. Thanks to a lot of you. No, Kyle, it was not a pizza delivery. I would have been much more comfortable than what we dealt with just a minute ago.
Yeah.
When we do come back here on 365 Sports, and thanks for everybody for not just playing along, but being a part of what we're doing with Pick'em. When we come back, We'll have Mickey Spagnola. The Cowboys got bloodied in Santa Clara. His thoughts about the week against the Chargers, L.A. This is 365 Sports. Don Humidor Coffee Beans, Town West Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. I played a round of golf earlier today and with David Gonzalez, and just love playing with David. He smokes a cigarette or two on occasion, and I smoke a cigar or two on occasion when we're playing a round of golf. And it was Sunday, for whatever reason, I went to go play golf, and I did not bring my Pelican case with the cigars, and I felt like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because it's kind of just a relaxing thing for me when I play a round of golf. You get cigars here in Waco, and you could even call them and they can send them to you. I do remember one of our great listeners, in fact, bought a gift card, and when I went in there one night, it was there for me and helped me get even more cigars. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans with a 48-foot walk-in humidor. Today, I smoked several Rocky Patels. That's my favorite brand. There was an Arturo Fuente, an Aston, and also My Father, which is a really good smoke as well. They have CBD products, THC called Bad Days for those with chronic pain, and it really can make a difference. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills. Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne, tell them Smokey sent you.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.
Prescott fires, caught, Lamb, touchdown.
Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
You know, sometimes you play a game, you win, you lose, you might blow somebody out, you might get bloodied. Cowboys were bloodied by the 49ers in Santa Clara in a Sunday night game. Mickey Spagnola joins us. Craig and Paul, I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. Would that be the term, bloodied, for you, Mickey?
Yeah, I think when you lose a game by the worst margin since 2010, it was quite bloody. Very, very good term there, David Smoak.
Thank you.
What is the gap that the Cowboys have to overcome? I don't think every game they would play against the 49ers would be 42-10. but they've not beat them the last several times that they've played. What is the biggest gap they have to overcome in your mind between them and the 49ers?
Well, not play as poorly as they did Sunday night, right? I mean, the other two losses you just referred to were by 6 points and 7 points. Now it's by 32 points. Yeah, I don't know that San Francisco got that much better or the Cowboys got that much worse. They just played poorly. They got outplayed. I think they got outcoached. I think that San Francisco's game plans on offense and defense, and Jerry Jones referred to it on Tuesday, saying, if we have the opportunity to play them again, there's a bunch of things we can adjust to compensate for what took place on Sunday night, and I thoroughly believe him. They couldn't stop the run, and it wasn't like they were running any fancy plays. They couldn't stop the pass, and the fancy play was the double reverse throwback to the quarterback, and nobody decided to cover George Kittle as they didn't on the other two of his three touchdown passes. So, I just think it was one of those games. Now, going forward, we'll find out if there is a gap that big, because you got to play 12 more games. You're not going to play San Francisco again until if you're lucky enough to get into the playoffs. But not everybody is as good as San Francisco, right? At some point, we got to hand it to them. That was their 15th consecutive regular season win. Over the last 17 home games, they've gone 16-1. So they got something rolling, right? And the Cowboys, among those 15 consecutive regular season wins, and then they had two more, by the way, in the playoffs before they ran out of quarterbacks in the NFC title game. The Cowboys held them to the least amount of points at 19, because this year, now all 5 games, they've scored at least 30 points in each of the games. So, what the Cowboys did last year in the playoffs was about as close as anybody came to beating the 49ers until they got blown out in the NFC title game by Philadelphia after their starting quarterback was out, the backup quarterback got hurt, and then the quarterback that came in like a week or two off his couch got hurt, and the starting quarterback, which was the second quarterback, had to go back in, but he couldn't throw the ball.
Mickey, there's always great stories. Brock Purdy is a great story. The last player drafted, Mr. Irrelevant, all of that stuff, was a nice college quarterback at Iowa State. When you talk to Cowboys coaches or what you see yourself, what makes him, I know he has weapons, but he just seems to be so calm and collected.
Yeah, well, you're right about the weapons. You're right about the weapons on defense, by the way, where he probably very rarely has to play from behind, which I'm not trying to get off track here, but I didn't understand why the Cowboys won the toss and deferred, because I'm thinking, well, don't they know that for the last 7 games they've scored on their opening possession? So why get yourself behind? At least take the ball and try to score and put them behind, right? But anyway, think about it, David. He played 4 years of college ball at Iowa State. Took a lot of snaps. Now, people might not have been impressed by him, but too many quarterbacks, in my mind, come out too soon, and they haven't played enough quarterback in college. And then they get in the NFL and they get overwhelmed because everything's so much more complicated, and they just don't have that amount of experience. So I think, number one, that certainly helps them. Number two, we can go to the weapons. They kept him clean, if you think about it. The Cowboys barely touched him in the game, and that was kind of their calling card, putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. But when you had teams running for 170 yards and got you off balance, it's really hard to adjust into pass rushing when you're sitting there going, man, I'm beating my brains out trying to stop the run, and I'm not doing that very well. So I think it's a combination of things, and I think Kyle Shanahan's pretty sharp. Coordinator of an offense, taking, the quarterbacks he's had and turning that team into a perennial winner.
Mickey, Dak struggled mightily in the game. The offense has been, it's hard to get a read on because they haven't had to really kicking into full drive because the defense has done so well. And the other games this year, I mean, he is under fire from every corner of the sports media world and the internet. And again, those questions are going to exist until he does or does not win a Super Bowl in his tenure with the Cowboys. But is some of this maybe adjusting to the Mike McCarthy offense a little bit, and they haven't quite hit their rhythm in that?
Well, maybe they need to adjust back.
Yeah.
Now, look, there's a lot of dumbasses out there, right? So I'm not worried about him being under fire from people that don't watch him play every game of his career, right, or every snap. But from an offensive standpoint, to me, he just doesn't look comfortable. It looks like he's hurrying himself. They've made such a big deal about getting the ball out of his hands that I don't know if he's taken the time to go through his reads the way maybe he normally would. I don't care if the ball gets out at 2.1 seconds or 3.1 seconds, as long as it gets out at the right time, at the right person, in the right place, right? And I think too much has been made of that. I think too much has been made of, well, we can't throw interceptions. Well, sometimes you're going to get intercepted because you got to throw some passes that are going to be 50-50 balls in this league, and you got to hit those. Now, those interceptions came in the second half. San Francisco already had the game in hand. If you look at the first one on the deep ball, he didn't step into the pass. Well, how come he didn't step into the pass? Because he had somebody coming from his left and somebody coming in his face, and they were each one step away from sacking him. So the bad interception was on the slant. He's got to know better than that. But I think at times when you get behind like that, you start forcing things. So, there's more to it than Dak Prescott, right? They couldn't run the football. We thought the offensive line being back together for the first time since the end of the 2021 season was going to make a difference. Well, they looked like they hadn't been together since the last game of the 2021 season, right? The blocking, what did they run the ball for? Like 57 yards?
Yep.
No explosive plays other than the touchdown to Turpin, and then he gets hurt. Then they lose Leighton Vander Esch, and he's got to miss 4 games now. He's going on injured reserve. So there was a lot of other stuff going on to take some blame for that loss, and not just on the quarterback's shoulders.
Mickey, last thing from my perspective, the Chargers, of course, coming up this weekend. It's a night game, Monday night game. They're 2-2. Yep. They've won a couple after a shootout loss against who we know is really good, Miami. Then they lost to the Titans by 3 on the road. But they've come back to win. Is Herbert getting protection? And who are the Chargers, in your opinion, based on what you've seen the evidence in 4 games?
Yeah, I think Herbert's awfully good. And remember, they've got the number 5 ranked total offense. So they're moving the football. They're scoring points. What was the first game you mentioned? Wasn't it like 36-34 or something like that?
Exactly right.
You score 3-4 points, you ought to win, right? Their problem has been defense. They're the 31st ranked defense, 32nd against the pass. So very good on offense. And this Cowboy defense needs to step up and play a heck of a lot better than they did against the 49ers. Plus, now he's going to be two weeks removed from spraining that middle finger on his left hand. That I think in the last game he finished with it taped up. And their running back, Austin Eckler, after suffering a high ankle sprain in the opener, when he went for 117 yards rushing, said he'd 99% chance he'll play in this game, and it looks like he's going to be back. So getting him back, and with their ability to throw the ball, they got to be careful because I'm sure Kellen Moore is probably geeked up for this game, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I would think so, Mickey. Brandon Cooks has not been a factor yet, and Michael Gallup has not really been a factor yet, and the Cowboys were counting on that. Do you expect them to maybe, again, de-West Coast some of the offense a little bit to play to their strengths a little bit better?
They need to get rid of the West Coast. It looks like the Gulf Coast to me. I think we've made way too much about this West Coast stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they've only got two touchdown passes to their wide receivers. So it's not like it's just those two. CeeDee Lamb's not squawking just because he wants a squawk, right? He's not getting the ball. The majority of their touchdowns have been defensively and to the tight ends and one to a running back. Over in the passing game. So yeah, the passing game, and I get back to what I said about Dak. I just doesn't look like he's comfortable, whatever they're asking him to do. McCarthy this week talked about, we're a defensive team and we're playing to the defense. I'm going, okay, that's fine. But when your defense is giving up 42 points, you got to score. No more complimentary football. It's one game. I understand it. And I think we'll get a better feel now what they do against the Chargers on Monday night to maybe where they really are against a good team. Because right now, the 49ers are the best team on the planet, right?
Yeah.
In football.
They look like it.
No questions asked, right? So no shame in losing. You just don't want to be non-competitive like they were and get beat by 32 points.
Mickey, thank you. Enjoy the game Monday night. Sandy, I will just like Brigham Young. It's BYU.
Good. I'm trying to refrain from doing that myself.
Golly, the Chargers and the Cowboys in a really good one. A couple of back-to-back primetime games. Last Sunday night got blown out, bloodied by the 49ers, and now the Chargers and Justin Herbert and company. And Eckler he's also a pass receiving threat when he's healthy and out of the backfield. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top five, and this is 365 Sports.
Unite Private Networks. Go to uniteprivatenetworks.com to find out more information. Why UPN Internet? Business-grade internet, no residential customers. You're not saving or sharing with anything. It's protected fiber service. Dedicated and symmetrical, upload and download. So your speed's up to 10 gigs per second, up and down. Same thing. And there's no last mile copper. It's 100% fiber optic. Usually you get fiber optic. The last mile to the telephone pole or where they have it is copper. It's not all fiber. That's what they have here. It has changed everything we do. UPS battery backed up internet service. We've experienced that. We had a little brownout here a few weeks ago. Boom, right back on the internet. If you are here locally, call our buddy Ace, 254-803-7070, or go to uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed.
You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 surprise teams. Number 5 is a little bit like that. I put them at 5, but I do think, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, it's Oklahoma. I think after last week, I thought they were going to be better this year, but being number 5 in the country at this point in the season, I don't think I would have had Oklahoma doing just that. Now, I know their schedule lined up for that, but I just thought that maybe there'd be a little bit more growing pains than we've seen, and so far they've dealt with everything perfectly.
Well, I absolutely did not have them beating Texas, and I thought that there was still a chance that could get one-sided. When they scored quickly and kind of put out a note and a statement, they impressed the hell out of me, despite the fact they had blown the lead late in the game.
I always believed in my Sooners. How dare y'all? I'm just kidding, obviously. Yeah, I thought Texas would win last week. And look, if you pick Texas, they were a minute away from winning the game, so it's not like it was just some, took them to the woodshed. But, yeah, Oklahoma's much better than I expected them to be. Now, granted, I don't think, because I know them a little bit better, that gives me a better opinion because I'm a bit more pessimistic with them than I am with other teams, too, because I overcorrect, if anything, to set myself up to be happily surprised like last weekend. But no, I mean, they're much further along defensively than I thought they would be, even thinking that they would be better. They've been much better than I expected already. And, Dylan Gabriel and the offense are just zooming on along. So, yeah, to be here I don't think is a total shock, but it is a little bit surprising. And, we'll see now. I mean, now all the aim is back on them now. Yeah. I mean, they're right there. They're the top team in the conference. They're a CFP contender. And if they win out, we know they're in. Yeah. But, now that target's on their back. And it's been a little while since it's been firmly on their back. It's been a little bit. So, let's see how they deal with that.
I just thought that what they did also, not just making up, make up for getting destroyed 49-0. But there was the thought now that the SEC was around the corner, that Texas was far and away ahead of the curve when it comes to Oklahoma. And I think that they're just both very high-level elite blue bloods, and I think they're both going to be just fine. How fine, I don't know, but I think that was something Oklahoma kind of showed as well.
Yeah. Number 4, Air Force.
Good for the
academy. They are look. We saw them in the bowl game last year, and it's hard to judge anything from that frozen hellscape of a nightmare that we had to be thrown into.
But the people at Amon Carter were great. Yeah. That is my one positive takeaway. I will always say wonderful. That because they had to deal with that experience, and so, they were great.
I will only say there was one guy, and I'll call him Parking Lot A-hole, who was like, no, I can't let you in. I'm like, buddy,
there's only 12 cars.
Just let me drop the stuff off. I'll call your boss right now.
He let me in.
Yeah, he didn't let me in. Well,
I said, go Frogs.
Yeah, no, I don't know. He was being you give difficult. Him a little bit of that power, and sometimes they're just drunk with it.
Like those Cowboys training camp volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. They feel like Al Pacino at the end of Scarface just hopped up on cocaine, thinking they're going to beat everybody. But
y'all weren't even outside for the whole game.
No, I don't.
Oh my God.
Also because of that, my one takeaway from the game is behind Paul.
Yeah. That's also why you have 3 fingers on your right hand because you froze off.
That's why during the summer sometimes he was just still wearing a hoodie when it's 119 outside.
God, that was brutal.
Jack's core temperature is still 92.4. But after that one. Yeah. But, and look, the next team on the list is who they play this week. But Air Force has been a really pleasant surprise. Wyoming is number 3. This should be a heck of a game. Yeah. This is Troy Calhoun versus Craig Bowles, some guys who were kind of old and grizzled in the biz. Wyoming had the big one over Fresno State, who I said earlier would be this year's Tulane, and they still might be. But Wyoming has lost 1 game to Texas, and they played fantastic in it for a good chunk of it. They beat Texas Tech. So, yeah, I'll throw the Cowboys on this list as well. So
I did not realize that Air Force was unbeaten. They haven't been tested. Sam Houston was 13-3, but they see what happens when you beat Baylor. It launches you to better things.
Yeah, well, we'll see a lot of teams getting launched then this year because
God.
Anyways, this will be a great showdown in the Mountain West. Somebody's going to get their first loss, and as far as the conference play goes, and potentially for Air Force, their first loss on the season period. But yeah, Wyoming's been a great story. Air Force is. Can they fly under the radar? The Air Force Academy?
Yeah.
Stealth
bombers.
Stealth,
but no, this ought to be a really fun one out in the Mountain West, and something's got to give there at the top of the standings. So, cool stories, both programs. And Wyoming in particular, I think because they jumped out and beat Tech and then, had the tough tussle with Texas and gave them a run for their money. And, they've been a fun team, a spunky team to follow along with this year.
I like Craig Bolt, was on Osborne's staff for a while, went to North Dakota State, had great run, and then he's like Wyoming's just, kind of there, and they're a little bit better at times, can create a problem. Last year they were 4-8. Last year they were 6-5. What were they? 6-5. I'm sorry, 7-6, 7-6. So they've been to a couple of bowl games, and about 5 or 6 since he's been there.
Yeah, I think that this game this weekend with Calhoun and Bowl is like two guys who've been doing this for a while. Like there's a lot of coaches that grumble like I don't like
we tried to get Calhoun on the show last year before the bowl game, and almost 90% of the time we get the coach. There's like 3 or 4 schools you're not. Never did.
No, that's just not surprised, and he's well thought of.
Absolutely,
I'm not surprised. Number 2, West Virginia. 4-1, and the only loss is to a very good Penn State team. And here's the deal: they're 1-1 after the first 2, and everyone's like, "Well, yeah, they're supposed to be." They lost to Penn State, who's really good. They beat Duquesne, who's Duquesne, and then the Pitt game comes. They're playing with the backup quarterback for most of the game. The defense shuts Pitt down, and as Jed Drenning said, started sending Phil Yurkovich off to being a tight end, and all of a sudden you think, oh, well, this is different. Okay, won the big rivalry game. Okay, then you beat Tech. Then you beat TCU, and all of a sudden you've got Neil Brown having these guys playing super confident, rolling to Houston tonight. Man, I just thought that Neil Brown was going to be done because the schedule was going to be too tough, but he's turned it on his ear so far.
No, he has. They've been a great story. Been surprising. I don't even think the most positive West Virginia fans would have had them, not knowing what we didn't know at the time, have them at this record at this point. I don't think you could have sat there and really said, they'll beat Pitt, and then they'll go beat Tech, and then they'll go beat TCU on the road. I mean, even the most optimistic wouldn't have thought that they'd correctly navigate that stretch. The Penn State loss wasn't a surprise, but Penn State's a top 5-ish, top 10 team, so there's no shame in that, especially in Happy Valley. But other than that, they've found a way. Not every game's been super pretty. They're not like a super well-balanced team, but they just make plays when they need to, and they play stingy defense, and they get by on offense. And, C.J. Donaldson hasn't been, great this year for them. They've had quarterback injuries that have come into play, and that defense has been able to be their backbone. So they should win tonight. They should. I think they're a better team than Houston, but, Thursday night on the road. But if they do, then my gosh, They've got a couple of potential stumbling blocks in the second half, but they also play a lot of the new teams. They play UCF, BYU, and Cincinnati, and they play Houston tonight. So their second half is all four of the new teams, and I would think that favors them. They will get Oklahoma. They will get Oklahoma State here in a couple of weeks, but shoot, they win the night, man. They're sitting super pretty, and who the heck knows, here in 2-3 weeks when they match up with the Sooners, for example, of what that could look like.
I'll never forget Neil Brown when he came to our table at Big 12 Media Days, and the look on his face, even then he was in a bad mood. And it wasn't because he was whining. He was in a bad mood. At 14th, he talked about having the offensive line back, and you could tell he wasn't just being coach speak. He was angry and determined, and I'm happy for them. That's a great run. Joey Foster and Cuz and all you guys that are West Virginia fans, S. Michael DeHart and Kyle Little, really happy for everyone. Not talk to everybody that's on the chat room, but good luck tonight. Enjoy the game.
Number 1, Louisville. They are, they are, to me, the biggest surprise. I thought Jeff Brom would, especially with Jack Plummer at quarterback, a guy who's transferred a couple times, even though he knew the system, would kind of, stumble a little bit, but they're set up well to win most of the rest of theirs. Now, look, they've got Miami on the schedule. I believe they have Clemson. It's going to get tough, but they play physical. They Of course, the city loves Jeff Brom and always has loved Jeff Brom, and probably wanted to be the head coach the day he graduated from Louisville. But it has worked out perfectly, and so far, I mean, they're undefeated, and they really stuck it to Notre Dame. Louisville's a really kind of crazy place when fan-wise they really buy into their teams when they're good, and right now the football fans are going nuts.
No, they've been an incredible story. I don't recall really. I mean, a lot of teams you can at least remember seeing some hope or thoughts that they might be better than expected. I don't recall seeing anything about Louisville and being off to a start like this. So yeah, this has come as pretty much a huge shock. They've been rising up all of the various rankings as a result, and rightfully so. But Brom's rolled in there and done a great job. Meanwhile, Satterfield's kind of still feeling his way out there at Cincinnati, but you wondered how all that was going to work, and it's worked out tremendously for the Cardinals. So yeah, they've been a tremendous story. They're right there in the thick of the ACC race, and they can cause a lot more disruption. But I definitely didn't expect that we'd be talking about them, at the top of a surprise list halfway through the season. But they've been getting the job done.
Most everybody in the chat room picking West Virginia. Paxton and Clay say C.J. Donaldson's get 150 yards and a couple of scores. Thanks for the predictions. Paxton also saying Louisville is last year's TCU. Jack, I know you got to go to cover something. Thank you so much. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, Emery, Levi, Owen, everybody here. Tonight, 10:30 on the CW, 365 Sports Tonight. I'm David Smoak. Have a great night.